Madam Mayor, respected councillor, and respected member of Northeast Lincolnshire Council. Hello, everyone. My name is Inderjeet Singh. I'm representing Sikh community. I have been in the UK since 2000, and I would like to tell you a little bit about the Sikh community, also about Grimsby, how I found since 2000 up to now. When I first came across, there's not many members of Sikh community, either of the other communities, but now we become multicultural, respect each other, share love, and I think Grimsby is a wonderful place, and I always loved living in Grimsby, and respected people from Grimsby. I always rate Grimsby really high. And from the Sikh community, Sikh religion found about 350 years ago. And we have biggest kitchen in the world, which is in Golden Temple, Amritsar, North India, Punjab. There is 1 million people eat food every day, get shelter, which is free of charge, which is started by the Sikh gurus, and they take advantage. And we share love. And also in Grimsby, we have Sikh temple in Freeman Street. Madam Mayor been to one of the services. Service is every Sunday. Everybody welcome to come to the service and also have the dinner with the Sikh community. Everybody welcome. And also I would like to tell you a little bit about the Sikh history. During the First and Second World War, the Sikh soldier, which is a Sikh battalion, fight against Hitler alongside with a British soldier, and they win the Pacific battle against Hitler. And I'm really proud to be Sikh. And also when I've been to the some of the army camps when I was young, and I remember I took one of my friend actually introduced because he wants to go in army. And at the time, the guy was a army soldier, and also there was a member of the battalion. He has actually give so much respect to the young lad, and he said, because we known Sikh soldier for their braveries, they always welcome. And I'm really proud to be Sikh, and I'm proud to be here, member of Grimsby Council. Thank you very much.
Item 1, Mayor's announcements. Good evening.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Couldn't the Mayor explain why that was done instead of the full prayers as is normal? Thank you.
As Mayor, I decided instead of having prayers, I was going to have reflection of the day. My theme as Mayor is reaching hard to reach communities, and this is why I have asked Imajit to come from the Sikh community, and this is why it's happened. So thank you. I will be having another reflection of the day on the next council. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the North East Lincolnshire Council. A reminder that this meeting is being broadcast live. Members will need to use their microphones at all times when we are in public session, including when voting as part of a recorded vote. Thank you to all those who contributed to the name card. The winner will be announced tomorrow. We have got a lot of business to get through this evening, and I would like to remind members of changes made to standing orders, including that meetings will be subject to final guillotine at 11:30. I hope that we can ensure that all business on the agenda for this evening's meeting can be dealt with properly and efficiently within that timescale. In the spirit, may I take the opportunity to remind members to be respectful to each other and at all times, please. And sorry, my microphone went on. I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Imager again for coming and giving us a reflection of the day. Thank you so much. Item 2, apologies for absences. Is there any apologies for absences for this meeting?
Madam Mayor, we've received apologies for absence from Councillors Bonner, Brooks, Jervis, K Swinburne and S Swinburne.
Item 3, I will now move the minutes of the meeting of North East Lincolnshire Council held on the 25th of September 2025 and the special meeting of North East Lincolnshire Council held on the 12th of November 2025. Do I have a seconder?
I stand to second that, Madam Mayor.
Anyone against? Oh, sorry. All those in favour, please indicate. Carried. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members in any item on the agenda for this meeting? Councillor Shreve.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, with your permission, I may have to leave the meeting early. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mickleborough. Item 5, question time. The council has received 2 questions from a member of the public for this evening's meeting. Please can I remind the member of the public to present the questions as submitted. The first question has been received from Sam Brown, who is he in attendance? He's not here. Sam is not here tonight, so I will read Sam's first question, and what will happen, it'll be a written reply will be sent to her. Sam's first question. Corporation Bridge, as I'm sure everybody knows, continues to be an inconvenience with work going on, affecting local businesses, residents, and of course, our local authority. Speculation of spiralling costs escalates. Residents are rightly concerned of the effects of the works to Corporation Bridge is having. For example, there are concerns that local businesses have continued to face frustration with the ongoing delays and the possibility of lost revenue. Questions are being asked if affected businesses will get any sort of compensation. There's the question of how the works are costing the council and the confusion by previous contractor on why they were all sacked. At the Transport Infrastructure and Strategic Housing Scrutiny panel, 2 options on how to proceed were put forward. One option being to continue with the idea of opening the bridge in 2026, and the other to spend an extra 800,000 to open one lane of traffic, with this delaying the opening until 2027. At the same scrutiny panel, it was mentioned by a member in attendance that the previous contractor had made mistakes, and maybe then that was why that contractor was let go. My question will be to the portfolio holder to clear the air on Corporation Bridge and explain to the people of North East Lincolnshire how the council got to where it is and what will be done moving forward. Councillor Jackson, in the absence of the portfolio holder for housing, infrastructure and transport, please will you respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question. To fully answer the question, giving it justice and clearing the air would mean me disclosing exempt information which may undermine the council's ongoing position and ultimately be detrimental to the interests of residents. All elected members are obliged to act in the interest of the communities they serve and to ensure that their decisions benefit residents whilst acting prudently and with appropriate transparency. With those obligations in mind and knowing what I know, those interests are best served by me saying very little at this stage. That is my honest opinion as an elected member, leader of the council and a resident of this borough. I appreciate that there is much public interest in this scheme, that there have been challenges and delays, but I assure everyone that positive steps are being taken to progress matters as quickly and as appropriately transparently as possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Sam's second question is as follows. Back in August 2022, North East Lincolnshire Council brought Freshney Place Shopping Centre. This authority runs the centre at arm's length approach, leaving the day-to-day operations to a company called Queensberry. Before and after the purchase, there had been issues with antisocial behaviour. While the staff of the centre, with help from Humberside Police, are able to control the amount of ASB that happens, sometimes it can be too much. On Thursday, the 30th of October 2025, a group of young people took action against the centre and staff, leaving them overwhelmed. There were young people riding around the inside of the centre on bikes, young people giving grief and abuse to staff, with staff having objects thrown at them. The group of young people also took the opportunity to pull and destroy some of the plants and flowers that had been placed on Victoria Street by Grimsby in Bloom. My question, learning from what happened on the day in question, what actions and reassurances can the portfolio holder give to tenants and staff of the centre, to all that use Freshney Place, to prevent such incidents happening again? Councillor Shepherd, as portfolio holder for safer and stronger communities, please could you respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Sam, for the question. The Community Safety and Youth Justice Partnership is aware of the actions of a small number of children within the Grimsby Town Centre on the 30th of October 2025. I think it's also called Mischief Night. This being the period commonly known as Mischief Night and Halloween, which it's a yearly period where, by ASB standard, it's caused across the whole of the borough, not just in the town centre. This is also a common pattern across the nation. We, as a partnership, are working together to not only investigate incidents that occurred during this period, but also further enhancing our proactive response at key points where we know activity increases to support children being diverted from ASB, criminality, and to increase public safety. Freshney Place can confirm that an incident involving a group of youths occurred in the wider town centre on the 30th of October 2025. While Freshney Place was affected, most of the disruption took place on Victoria Street and the surrounding area. Freshney Place security team mobilised immediately and effectively, and at no point was Freshney Place overwhelmed. During this incident, Freshney Place restricted access to young people involved in the antisocial behaviour. These actions were taken to ensure safety of our tenants, the shoppers and staff, and to maintain a controlled and secure environment within the centre. Madam Mayor, following the incident, Freshney Place acted promptly and has continued to take robust measures. Security staff was increased immediately and will continue to do so during the peak periods running up to Christmas. Liaison with Humberside Police and Council CCTV teams was maintained throughout. Exclusion notices were issued where appropriate. Security patrols were reorganised to ensure rapid response for any further issues. Madam Mayor, this is an ongoing police investigation with some of the evidence that was captured by our CCTV control room. When you see youths walking down the street covered in flour, you wonder what they've been doing. So as it's an ongoing investigation, I can't really comment any further on that, but I can reassure Sam that measures have been taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I will arrange for a written confirmation of the answers to the question to be sent to Sam. Thank you. Item 6, the leader's statement. Councillor Jackson, will you give your leader's statement, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to members. I want to start by focusing on where we are with regeneration projects across the borough. So the transformation of Grimsby Town Centre and the delivery of the Town Centre Master Plan continues. The demolition of the western end of Freshney Place is now complete, and the foundations and piling for the new cinema and leisure units are currently going in, and steelwork for the new structures will be appearing in the new year. The conversion of the old British Home Stores building to form a new market hall is also continuing. The Horizon Youth Zone building has now been handed over to Onside for phased opening in the new year. For those of you who've had an opportunity to look at the building, it's a fantastic example of regeneration, converting the old West Havens maltings into a new use, and the building looks stunning. And it's also going to be a game-changing opportunity for young people in North East Lincolnshire once it's open, and also is helping towards the diversification of the town centre offering. Madam Mayor, demolition on the Transport Hub site is now complete on Osborne Street, and designs are being worked up for the new facility. We had a successful series of festive events on Riverhead Square, along with a great Christmas light switching on event across the town centre a couple of weeks ago. And the focus was very much on local businesses. The new E-Factor Business Hive in St James House has transformed that building, and that's certainly, again, bringing a different set of people into the town centre. Keep Moat is currently mobilising on site to deliver the new Alexandra Dock housing development, the first new housing we've had in Grimsby Town Centre for a generation. In Victoria Street, the High Street greening in collaboration with Grimsby in Bloom and local businesses has delivered sustainable planters and new all year round lighting, delivering a much more vibrant space. The 3 Cleethorpes Master Plan Levelling Up Fund projects, which are Sea Road, Pier Gardens and the Marketplace, are now moving into the delivery phase, with project starts in Q1 of the new year. Cleethorpes will be visibly transformed during 2026, Madam Mayor. Moving now to children's services, and following the recent Ofsted inspection, which of course gave us a good outcome, we have retained the statutory direction in children's services to ensure resilience and strength in depth in terms of the scale and pace of change, along with implementation of the Families First Partnership Programme. Members have already been briefed on this important national reform programme, which is the biggest change to children's services for many years. Madam Mayor, our local government reform submission was submitted to government on the 28th of November, and we're now waiting for the Secretary of State to announce the statutory consultation process, which we expect in Q1 of next year. Of course, at this stage, we still don't know which particular options the Secretary of State will choose to consult on. Speaking of consultations, Madam Mayor, the consultation has opened on North East Lincolnshire's draft preferred options local plan and runs until the 1st of February. This is a very important document and will determine what the borough looks like through to 2043. And it's important that local people have their say, especially that we now have to accommodate 622 new homes per year, which is more than 11,000 homes over the plan period. The consultation can be accessed online, and hard copies are available in our libraries and in the municipal office. And there will also be face-to-face events across the borough. I would encourage everyone to take part in the consultation, and all the details can be found on the council's website. Madam Mayor, normally the council action tracking report will be circulated. I don't think it's actually in front of members tonight, but I'm sure Democratic Services will ensure that it's circulated as soon as possible to all members. And finally, Madam Mayor, it just remains for me to wish all members of the Chamber and the public out in North East Lincolnshire a very Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Item 7, special urgency decisions. Members, this is for Council to be notified of any special urgency decisions taken by Cabinet. This was formally dealt with by the leader in his statement and details tabled to all members. However, with the leader's statement now being shortened, the council agreed that this would be the subject of a separate agenda item. This is the first instant of an intended report to council as when required, but at least annually in line with legislation requirements. This does not mean that the Cabinet's decision is open for re-examination. The decision has already been made with the support of the appropriate chair of the scrutiny. The purpose of the report is mainly to inform council of the urgent decision as set out in the report. Any speakers are therefore required to limit remarks to the use of the special urgency. Leader, Will you propose that the report is to be noted?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to propose that the report be noted as you suggest. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I rise to second. Thank you.
All those in favour? As long as it's in for the special urgency. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is all to do with the special urgency, so please bear with me. The Corporation Bridge saga has taken quite a long time. We all know that. I'm not going to go into details. And we've known in the summer that we was changing contractors and that we'll be getting new contractors in. I'm wondering why, when we've known and planned these stages, why this is a special agency decision, and why it wasn't planned in to the work and put forward in the forward plan and such like as per normal decisions, when we've known, because it's been muted at scrutiny about getting new contractors. And obviously we don't get told everything, but we've known that this has been going on for quite a while. So I don't understand why this is a special agency decision. So that's what I'm going to say.
Any more speakers? Councillor Holland.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just initially, I think a point of order. So this report actually has been signed off by the monitoring officer. It's a report from the monitoring officer. I think it actually should have been a report from the leader. But I would actually like to echo Councillor Wilson's point here. Why was an urgency decision required? Because in my view, it was not. So when the contract with Spencer's was terminated in May, it was apparent at that time, I think, that the budget cap would need to be significantly increased, and I stated as much to officers at that time. So there was ample time to go through our normal protocols to allow for an increase in the budget cap and go through the normal protocols so that we increase the capital budget. And I believe doing that actually would have exposed this council to far less reputational, financial and potential litigational risk than we are seeing by this urgency decision being taken in the way that it has. I don't believe that the report that was issued to Cabinet when the decision was taken was comprehensive enough in terms of outlining the financial risks, which are significant. So I think
Councillor Holland's special urgency.
From a process point of view, in determining a special urgency decision, which is not available for call-in, so it has to be right first time, otherwise it could have significant impacts. It's a one-off decision. The information that's fed into that special urgency decision has to be correct, and I think there was ample time way back to have got this right. And I really fail to understand why we ended up with an urgency decision, which in my view is the wrong decision.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Any more speakers? Councillor Bright.
I won't repeat what Councillor Wilson and Councillor Holland have said, but it's clear in the Constitution that the special urgency mandates the decision to be urgent and cannot be reasonably deferred. The Cabinet report relied on the premise that should authorisation to proceed with the award be delayed, works mobilisation is likely to be postponed into the new year. Yet in the same Cabinet report, we know that...
Sorry, Councillor Bright, about the urgent decision.
Well, it is about the urgent decision. So we had TASICA with the council for 6 weeks, and it states determine definitive costs, determine the new scope, and establish an indicative programme under the council's guidance. So they were there for 6 weeks, yet we're expected to believe that it suddenly became an urgent decision in order to sign the contract without going through the normal 28-day period and the additional scrutiny of full council. So I'm just sceptical that if they were with our council officers for 6 weeks, that it then became an urgent decision. I just don't buy that. Sorry. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Jackson, right to reply.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the report which was tabled at Cabinet and discussed and agreed by Cabinet clearly set out the issues as to why it was an urgent decision and contained adequate information about the financial aspect of it. Therefore, I think that the report and the method by which the decision was made was perfectly satisfactory, and the need for a special urgency decision was also agreed and signed off by Councillor Mill, the chair of the relevant scrutiny panel. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We move to a vote. Yeah, lead. All those in favour? Sorry. Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. It's just to receive notification of the urgent decision.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said there. Could you say it again, please?
Sorry, Councillor Henderson. Yes, Council is merely asked to note the urgent decision.
All those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Item 8, questions on notice. 12 questions on notice has been submitted for this meeting. The expectation is members will ask questions as given on notice. The asking of any supplementary question is limited to 1 minute only and must arise directly out of the original question or the reply. Councillor Downs, please would you put your question, which is to the portfolio holder of finance, resources and assets, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been contacted recently by a resident group in my ward with concerns they are hearing locally that ward funding is ending from next year. As all members know, when used appropriately, ward funding is the lifeline of many community groups. Could the portfolio holder tell me what the current view of the council and its leadership is regarding ward funding, and if there indeed have been any discussions to date or there are any planned discussions regarding the future of ward funding, and what is known about the impact, if so, of removing ward funding on local communities, given we support some of the poorest communities in the countries, including, for example, residents on the East and West Marshes?
Councillor Harness, will you reply, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Downs for the question. Can I give all councillors the assurance that ward funding will continue as it is at present in the next financial year? Thank you very much.
Councillor Downs, do you have a supplementary?
I do, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Harness, for that. So given that response, can I confirm the portfolio holder commits to the protection of ward funding into the future beyond next year for the 15 wards who receive ward funding currently?
Thank you very much, Councillor Downs, for the supplementary question. Quite obviously, I'm not going to give any commitment for future years. I'm talking about the next financial year, and obviously these things are considered year by year. As I understand it, ward funding has been in place for 15 years, perhaps. I think that's accurate. I can't envisage any reason why it would stop in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harness. Councillor Humphrey, please would you put your first question, which is to the Leader of the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the Leader agree that it's important to the effective and engaging council priority of the council and to public confidence in our elected representatives that all councillors keep their register of interest regularly and at least annually updated? Thank you.
Councillor Jackson, will you reply, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Humphrey, for the question. Yes, I mean, obviously it's important that members' register of interest is kept up to date, but I think the most important thing is that it is current rather than necessarily being updated every year.
Councillor Humphreys, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Could Councillor Jackson explain why a number of his own cabinet haven't updated theirs register of interest in the last 2.5 years? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I have spoken to all members of my group and advised them to ensure that their register of interest is up to date. But I did take the opportunity also to have a look through the Labour members' registers of interest. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members of the Labour group's registers of interest are not up to date. If we're suggesting that they should be updated every year, which Councillor Humphreys, you seem to think is the correct way to do it. So Councillor Jervis hasn't had hers updated since 2024. Councillor Patrick since...
I'm sorry, Councillor Jackson, but Councillor Jervis
Councillor Patrick since 2023. Councillor Clough since 2024. Councillor Haggis since 2023. Councillor Kasmarath since 2024. And Councillor Mills since 2024. So I suggest, Councillor Humphrey, you make sure your own group gets things sorted out first.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Humphreys, please would you put your second question to the Chair of Standards and Adjudication Committee, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that the Chair isn't here. So am I all right to read my question?
With the Chair not being here, you can put your question to the Deputy Chair, which is Councillor Farron.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Deputy Chair in the Chair's absence share my disappointment following the cancellation of both the October and December Standards Committee meetings? We're now set to hold just 2 Standards Committee meetings this municipal year. Thank you.
Councillor Farron, in the absence of the Chair of Standards and Adjudication Committee, as Deputy Chair, will you please reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Humphrey, for your question. The answer is yes, and let me explain why the answer is yes. I personally think that 4 meetings a year is a very modest number. And you can also argue that most of the business that's carried out for Standards Committee is subcommittees, referrals and hearing panels for code of conduct issues, etc., which regrettably has been kept very, very busy this year. So for this municipal year, my view is this. 1 cancellation, I think, would be reasonable. 2 is 50% of the work. So we have to look at how residents of the borough look at, the work that we do and what their views would be. As an employer, would you think it would be correct and right that your employee had presented you with 50% of the work that you'd scheduled in for them? And would you think that that was a fair exchange of labour? I expect not. I would ask you to think what a member of the public would think about this. And would they agree that carrying out 50% of the work that's scheduled in for a panel is fair, right and correct? There are, in my opinion, themes that could have been drawn upon and perhaps scheduled in. So my idea would be that they are set aside as reserves so that the committee could undertake work that would benefit our authority and the wider public. An example this year would be changes in the legislation regarding standards, the ongoing debate for appeals for council staff, and perhaps refreshing our members of the current council's grievance and disciplinary procedures. Can we be truly authentic as members when we are cancelling meetings at a cost, but looking for prudent savings elsewhere, for example, printing out agendas? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Humphrey, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Farron. Councillor Holland, please would you put your first question, which is to the portfolio holder for finance and resources and assets.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the Corporation Road Bridge repairs were started in February 23, the public and local businesses were told that the work would take 10 months and the bridge would reopen in December of that year. It is now apparent that the works will take the best part of 4 years. This is creating a continuing and significant downturn in trade for a number of small and large retail and hospitality businesses in the impacted area. The affected businesses that I have spoken to are understandably angry and frustrated. It is not an exaggeration to say that some of them are in despair. Small and medium-sized businesses are the lifeblood of the economy in our borough. This is not a problem of their making, it is a problem of this council's making. Will the portfolio holder commit to use his best endeavours to ensure that North East Lincolnshire Council makes direct contact with every business in that area to explain their rights to seek a reduction in business rates and to also explore the possibility of other direct means of financial support and to brief the Economy, Culture and Tourism Scrutiny Panel accordingly in due course?
Councillor Harness, please will you reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Holland for the question. Corporation Bridge situation is not what anybody would want. I'm always good at understatements. I have every sympathy with affected businesses, and I recall the way work on the Tollbar roundabout challenged the existence of business in New Waltham a few years ago. However, it is very much for businesses affected by the bridge closure to contact NELC or their ward councillors. Businesses are in the West Marsh ward, and we have two well-respected West Marsh councillors here who are more than capable of acting on behalf of and asking questions on behalf of those businesses. I am not aware of any business in the vicinity of the bridge that have raised concerns directly with officers. From a traffic point of view, the feedback from our highways team is that the diversion route is now well established and provides access to all businesses operating in the area. Highways monitor the network and traffic flow closely and currently have no concerns about the impact of the diversion form and access point of view. Regarding the business rates, each affected business could follow the challenge and appeal process with the Valuation Office agency if they believe the work on the bridge amounts to a material change of circumstances that is having a negative effect on their property. The Valuation Office would consider this and may reduce the rateable value of the property. That would be a decision for the Valuation Office agency. It is worth noting many small businesses in NELC receive 100% small rates business rate relief. They do not actually pay business rates, so any reduction in rateable value would not help those businesses. The business rates team manager has personally offered to speak to affected businesses to explain and try to help. I am sure we, West Marsh ward councillors, especially yourself, Councillor Holland, and myself, can signpost business to the manager. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holland, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's clearly a disparity here between what businesses are saying, and I've spoken to a lot of them, and actually what we're saying as a council. And we've seen press reports with businesses saying they're forgotten, they're angry, they're frustrated. Would it not make sense for us as a council to be a little bit proactive on this, show that we have businesses right at the forefront of our thoughts and concern on this, and actually contact them and be proactive and say, look, we understand that this may be having an impact on your business. Please, this is what you need to do. Would it just not make sense and show the council in a good light?
Councillor Harness, would you please reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Holland for the supplementary question. Quite obviously, I've stated that it is for those businesses to contact NELC directly, or they could possibly contact the 2 ward councillors in the Westmarsh ward, and I think that would be the best way forward. The 2 ward councillors represent that ward, and they represent those businesses. You don't, Councillor Holland, the 2 ward councillors do. And I would be quite happy to work with those 2 ward councillors in this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harness. Councillor Holland, please would you put your second question, which is to the portfolio holder for environment and net zero.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In December 2022, this council voted to set a net zero carbon emission target of 2030, some 20 years ahead of the EU climate law and UK government climate change act targets of 2050. Could the portfolio holder for environment and net zero explain what practical impact this local 2030 target has made to the lives of residents, other than possibly encourage government to put in place net zero policies which have helped create the highest energy costs in the developed world, leading to industry struggling to remain competitive and energy costs being a crisis for the hospitality sector, for which many local jobs are dependent upon?
Councillor Hudson, will you reply, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Holland, for your question. If you remember, Councillor Holland, we only agreed to move as fast as reasonably practical. We also only set that target for the council, not the borough as a wide. We left the borough as a wide as 30 years. Now, you ask about members of the public. Well, anyone that's received the Warm Home Funding Grant will be over the moon that we went down this route. They've got better insulated houses, possibly with an air source heat pump. Their electricity bills are down, and their insulation is better. We've planted 700 trees, again with grant funding, across the borough, in the areas of the borough that had the least leaf canopy. And we all know that trees are good for people's mental health. They add shading. That's got to be positive for the people that vote for us. But the real benefits, Councillor Holland, have been to the council. And we've had a similar question before, and I apologise for repeating myself, but it's the grant funding we've attracted to replace our boilers, insulate our buildings, that we would have had to have paid for anyway. If we'd stuck with gas or diesel, we would have had to pay the full cost. Because we've attracted this grant funding, this authority has actually saved money by going down this route. The biggest saving of all is going to be the cremators at the Crem. It's going to cost millions to replace those. If we stick with gas, we pay the millions. If we switch to electric, which we're planning to do, we get most of that money back as part of a grant funding. So there have been several benefits. It was the right choice. I checked the minutes. Everybody that voted for that is in the room tonight. Well done. The only person that voted against it was Councillor Holland. Bad call, Councillor Holland. Thank you, Lady Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Councillor Holland, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Of course, grant funding, any grant funding, it's all public money. But it comes out of left pockets and right pockets. Anyway, the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has vowed to repeal the Climate Change Act if the Conservatives win the next election, removing the legal target to 2050 for the UK to be net carbon zero, calling it a failed target and citing the need for cheap and reliable energy. In view of this, and also the fact that this government is also beginning to navigate policy shifts, does the portfolio holder agree that a review of our own net zero strategy with an accompanying cost-benefit analysis would make perfect sense?
Councillor Hudson, will you reply, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Holland. We are constantly reviewing. We're not striving for 2030 at any cost. And to be fair, we've done the easy stuff. I've also noticed the grants are drying up. So we're going to be forced into a review because we're going to have to decide whether we want to, if pursue at all costs. So to pursue at all costs, the only way I see of achieving it now is to buy credits as an authority. And I personally don't think that is the right way forward. I think it's far better that we extend the target or postpone until more grants are available. Now, I know you scoff that that grants are still taxpayers' money, but I agree with you. I agree that taxpayers have had to stump up and pay for this nationally. But you asked about local issues. Locally, we have benefited, even if the taxpayers have had to pay more money overall. So yes, we are constantly reviewing. We're always reviewing, and it's not set in stone 2030. We're seeing what comes along, and we'll make those decisions as they come along. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Augusta, please would you put your first question, which is to the portfolio holder for culture, heritage and the visitor economy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last December, I asked for an update on the progress at Barrett's Rec Ground in relation to the play pitch strategy. Since then, we've seen further decay and residents left feeling the site is being ignored. Could the portfolio holder provide a further update on the actions taken since then and the current status of the strategy in relation to Barrett's?
Councillor Dawkins, as portfolio holder for culture, heritage and the visitor economy, please will you reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Augusta, for the question. The existing plain pitch strategy, the PPS, from 2020 is its 5-year point. Therefore, it's due a full review. And officers have started work to develop a new PPS for the whole of North East Lincolnshire. That's expected to be ready for approval in the summer of 26. Barrett's Rec will remain a focus within the review of the PPS, along with many other sites across the area with potential to develop across the borough. As you would expect, while the PPS is in the process of full review, where supply and demand information for pitches are being updated, large-scale projects are unlikely to move forward on site during this period. And we will be it will be clearer from summer 2026 onwards where the borough large-scale playing pitch developments could be prioritised and investment targeted. While the PPS is being updated, we have continued to invest where opportunities present themselves to deliver across parts of the PPS. In particular, the partnership work between the Council, Sport England, Ormiston Maritime Academy to refurbish the hockey pitch at the Academy to support protect hockey in the borough is a real positive for hockey locally, as you well know. There's been wider investment in recent years through grant funding secured from the Lawn Tennis Association into Barrett's Rec, and we're currently exploring enhancing that with adding floodlights during 2026. This has taken derelict tennis courts at Barrett's Rec and refurbished them into a good quality facility with over 1,500 court hours booked over the first year of operation, and it's likely to grow further when the floodlight provision has been provided. Thank you.
Councillor Augusta, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Speaking of lighting elements, the floodlights at the tennis courts, would you agree that it will encourage usage if lighting in Barrett's Rec was from the Scartha Road entrance all the way down to the Park Ave entrance, as there currently is no lighting that made the site feel safer?
Councillor Dawkins, please reply.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, the whole of all these sites, to be fair, I mean, you know, we've seen a massive investment in North East Lincolnshire. I don't think the whole time I've been in the borough, which is 60 years, I don't think I've ever seen the investment that we've had locally recently, and it is fantastic for everybody that takes part in sports. Regards lighting, that'll all come part as a review. We all know that dark areas don't particularly go down well, but yes, I welcome everything you say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Augusta, please would you put your second question, which is to the leader as portfolio holder of economy, regeneration, devolution and skills.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. In light of Small Business Saturday and the vital role local SMEs play in our economy, can the portfolio holder outline what specific support this council is currently providing to small businesses and what additional measures are being considered to help them thrive in the coming year?
Councillor Jackson, will you reply, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Augusta. It does give me an opportunity to talk in public about what we're doing in North East Lincolnshire to try to assist SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. So the council's economy and funding team, also known as Invest NELC, provides dedicated support to the local business community, providing a monthly newsletter outlining any local opportunities and events and signposting to specialist support agencies. They host events and workshops with subjects such as procurement, supply chain and collaboration aimed at supporting local businesses to win work. The Invest NEL team's ongoing business engagement with local businesses allows them to target businesses with support and funding opportunities as soon as they become available, working as a key contact into NELC to ensure businesses receive the right support quickly. They also assist businesses to access information and advice from internal departments such as planning, procurement and business rates. The Invest NEL web page is aimed at local business, providing information on grants and funding, skills and training, membership organisations and networking, and a bespoke premises search support service, as well as downloadable business support guidance. The eFactor Group have a dedicated free business support service dedicated to SMEs with a bespoke package of support for pre-start businesses, including the popular Be Your Own Boss workshops. With 300 members, the Business Hive provides workshops, events and valuable networking opportunities. 4 full-time business advisors provide confidential consultations, connecting businesses with grants and other support organisations. There is an investment hub with many years of experience in a banking environment, offering free and practical financial advice. There are local grant schemes such as £500 startup grants and £1,000 growth grants for established SMEs, and these have been funded through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund in 2025-26, delivered by the Growth Hub for the Greater Lincolnshire area. As well as grants, a wide range of fully funded programmes are available to help businesses at every stage, including Business Boost, Low Carbon, AI Accelerator, Leadership and Skills Development, and Manufacturing Support. There is apprenticeship support for both levy and non-levy paying businesses, assisting SMEs to access the apprenticeship programme through levy transfer, engaging with DWP and the Adult Careers team to assist with recruitment through the NELC Skills and Employment Strategic Lead. Also, of course, there's the work that the council is doing generally, which I talked about earlier, the various regeneration projects in both Grimsby and Cleethorpes, which are improving the place as a whole and making both towns more attractive for both local residents and visitors, thus helping to boost the income and activity for local businesses. And of course, last but not least, as you alluded to in your question, we did provide free car parking in selected council operated car parks on Small Business Saturday. So I think there's quite a good range of opportunities there. We're offering small businesses and assistance that we are providing where we can.
Councillor Augusta, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. This is positive here. Does this kind of support, though, extend to Jen Fredrickson, who shortly after being granted an alcohol licence, which the leader opposed, was then served a tenancy at will from the Waltham Windmill Trust, which the leader sits on?
Councillor, we tend not to discuss individual matters at full council, and nor do we identify third parties. Thank you. I take it that the supplemental is withdrawn. Obliged, thank you.
Councillor Augusta, please would you put your final question to the portfolio holder for environment and net zero?
Residents, thank you, Madam. Sorry. Residents have raised particular concern about the deteriorating conditions of the signs in People's Park, alongside wider issues with park infrastructure. What steps is the portfolio holder taking to restore and maintain our parks across our authority to ensure these public spaces remain welcoming and well kept?
Councillor Hudson, please will you reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Augusta, for the question. Signage, Councillor Augusta, is currently under review. We're looking at all the signage across the parks, all the way at the seafront. It's all under review, and People's Park in particular is going to get a visit in February. As for the parks, we have 36 groundkeepers. They are incredibly dedicated. They work in all weathers. I think they're doing a great job. They're really proud of their work. The team leaders send me photographs of before and after pictures when they're doing it. They're doing all the pruning at the moment, which of course they can't do in the bird nesting season, so all the winter work jobs. So some things might look a bit untidy that they've had to leave, but they can now get on with. I think they do a great job. I think they deserve the support of all of us. And if you get any specific issues, you know how to report them, Councillor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Augusta, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Does the portfolio holder also say thanks to the great team at Park Care who helped to keep the flower beds kept in People's Park?
I'll be honest, I haven't met Park Care, but well done them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Kaczmarek, please would you put your first question, which is to myself as Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the previous special full council, you allowed the matter of Corporation Bridge to be added to the agenda despite vocal opposition. During this, there was an attempt to move to a closed session without allowing any debate or discussion. And once in closed session, we were told by the monitoring officer that we were not permitted any debate or discussion. Do you, Madam Mayor, agree that it was a failing of officers and councillors that we had no opportunity to talk over such an important problem?
Councillor Kaczmarek, as I was not present at the meeting, I will decline to comment. However, I do understand the monitoring officer gave clear advice to members. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kaczmarek, please would you put your second question, which is to the portfolio holder for finance, resources and assets.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have seen many pictures of the state of Floral Hall in recent weeks. Many plants of heritage value have died on your watch. Why have you let such an important piece of heritage be lost?
Councillor Harness, will you please reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Kaczmarek for that question. I certainly do not take responsibility for the death of plants in the Floral Hall. Death by 1,000 cuts, perhaps, but certainly not by my hand. The good news is that the Cleethorpes Wildlife Rescue have signed a 2-year lease for the Floral Hall and grounds, with potential for a community asset transfer to follow. The main use will obviously be to provide sanctuary and rehabilitation of wildlife. The Floral Hall was last occupied by Gravity Red, Kick who vacated the property at the end of February. Since then, the property has been marketed, and on the 14th of November, the new lease was signed. During the period between leases, the council managed the vacant property and the remaining plants continue to be watered. The primary aim of the Cleethorpes Wildlife Rescue is to secure the long-term sustainability of the Floral Hall by creating a vibrant, inclusive and multifunctional community space in conservation, education and heritage. They are committed to the tropical garden. They aim to keep the gardens open to the public, providing opportunities for the local community to participate in their care and upkeep, fostering a sense of shared space. I am sure Councillor Kaczmarek will welcome the new arrangement. The Cleethorpes Wildlife Rescue have already commenced the required work to rescue the site itself from the years of neglect. As I understand it, they are looking for donations for the heating system, and we have to remember that they are primarily a volunteer group, and that already I have seen some of the work they've done, and they've put in some really good hard work. Other good news is that I have not been asked to be the head gardener. Thank you.
Councillor Kaczmarek, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, the Cleethorpes Wildlife Rescue are doing a fantastic job. I don't think there's any question or doubt in that. But you've said that the site has been neglected for years. You are the portfolio holder for assets. That has been an asset to the council and the community. I appreciate that you've not been looking after the plants yourself, but you have been in charge of the assets.
Councillor Kaczmarek, is there a question, please?
I'll get to my question now, Madam Mayor. I do apologise. Why have you allowed this site to get into such a state of disrepair? Is this not just another one of the many sites which the portfolio holder
Kaczmarek, can you be
has
more
failed to
precise,
maintain?
please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Harness, can you reply, please?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Councillor Kaczmarek, for the supplementary. And I'm sure you will provide a list of assets that we've neglected. What we're talking about here is a 50-year-old asset, 1975. I can remember it in its heyday. I really can. But since then, times have changed. It has gone through the hands of many organisations, Grimsby College, Health, Tubes, and then this last organisation. And during that time, unfortunately, it has come to an area of neglection, that's for sure. But I think we can all welcome this new beginning. But if you would want to give me a list of assets that I've neglected, that's fine. I'll just make one other point to you, Councillor Kaczmarek. I can well remember having a conversation with an ex-Labour leader of the council. I had an issue that I took to him, which required finance. And he said to me, Steve, do you want adult social care? Do you want children looking after? Or do you want me to put my money into your particular hobby course? And he was completely right. These are decisions that councils have to make. It's an unfortunate thing, but these are decisions we have to make. If you want to give me a list of the assets that you think have been neglected, we'll take it from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harness.
Madam Mayor, quick point of order. I don't know if you noticed that Councillor Parkinson's phone went off. He therefore owes you a fine for your mayoral fund.
You do? Councillor Parkinson, you're the first.
And what to say, from each according to his ability to each according to his means, Madam Mayor.
I'll see you later. Councillor Wilson.
The essence of the last question was why has it been neglected in the last 4 years while you've been portfolio holder? That's the essence of it. And I don't believe the answer was forthcoming. We had an anecdote of the last Labour leader, but there was no clear answer according to the Constitution that should have been coming forward. And I think we all councillors would like to hear that answer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, but personally, I thought Councillor Harness actually answered it. Thank you. Councillor Wheatley, please would you put your question, which is to the portfolio holder for children and education?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the portfolio holder agree with me that the children of this borough must never be used as a political tool?
Councillor Cracknell, as portfolio holder for children and education, please will you reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wheatley, for the question. I firmly believe, and I say this as a result of questions posed by Ofsted inspectors, that comments made by them in this summer's Good ILACS report relating to political understanding and agreement is rooted in the all-party commitment to ensuring children within children's services are not used for political advantage. And in that regard, I agree with you. In saying that, this does not preclude the importance of challenge and scrutiny. The Council needs both to demonstrate and understand its role in ensuring that what we are doing is all we can in the interests not only of our families known to social care, but for the wider families, children and young people population and the corporate parent responsibilities we have in our borough. They receive not only social care services, but education and youth services alongside others. I completely agree with you, Councillor Wheatley.
Councillor Wheatley, do you have a supplementary?
Just a small one, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that, Councillor Cracknell. Would you also agree with me then, therefore, it is disappointing to see continued attempts to politicise the children's and education agenda by one of the parties in this chamber, which is in direct misalignment of the spirit of the improvement journey that this council has been on, which has always been, as you've just mentioned, to keep the children out of political shenanigans.
I can only support what I have already said, that both inspectors and our commissioner, who of course is still working with us, have very much looked at the all-party support and commitment to children's services in what has been historically a difficult journey, but now is a transformational journey and will continue in the future. Again, I support what you're saying.
Thank you, Councillor Cracknell. Councillor Patrick, please would you put your question, which is to the chair of Community Scrutiny Panel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must say a very Merry Christmas to you. A couple of scrutiny meetings ago, the chair, Community Scrutiny, improperly tried to amend an officer report, and understandably, other members of the panel didn't support her. Bolstered still by the legal advice that her proposal wasn't possible, but was quickly rectified with unequivocal support when the proposal was changed to a recommendation to Cabinet as per the process. Yet the chair publicly suggested a falsehood that we as a committee at first opposed her on materiality of the issue, and she had to win us round, all of which she knew not to be true. Out of respect for her office, will the chair set the record straight and acknowledge that it was the mechanism of the proposal that was at fault and not the support of the panel members?
Councillor Aso, as chair of Communities and Scrutiny Panel, please will you reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Patrick, for your question. This is simply a matter of differing interpretations. I appreciate that we see things differently on many issues, but in this instance, I am fully satisfied that the committee followed the correct procedures.
Councillor Patrick, do you have a supplementary?
Point of order, Madam Mayor. My question was not whether or not the scrutiny panel actually followed correct procedures. My question was, would she actually set the record straight about what she said publicly about what allegedly happened on her watch as chair at scrutiny? I would like a response to that question, please.
Councillor April.
Madam Mayor, I did answer the question. This is simply a matter of different interpretations. And with your permission, Madam Mayor, I will give an example. The councillor for Heneage often states that he is regularly out in his ward.
Point
seeing
of order,
the-
Madam
No.
Mayor. This is not relevant.
Yes, it is. I'm giving an example. So he regularly states that he's out in his ward and sees the majority of his residents. I have close family friends in the ward, and they often tell me that they never see him.
Sorry,
Madam Mayor,
Aesop,
he
can we
may
make
disagree,
it relevant to
but
what
that is
was
precisely
asked,
a matter
not what
of
family friends says
interpretation.
or anything?
Thank
What
you.
was actually asked, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm giving an example of interpretation. It seems to be confusion that I haven't answered the question. So I've given an example of interpretation, and that is one of them. And in any case, Madam Mayor, his question is clearly politically intended, and so I have nothing further to say on it.
Councillor Patrick, do we have a supplementary?
No, Madam Mayor, we have a question and it's not been answered. I would like a response to my question, please, as per the Constitution and the responsibilities of the Chair of the Community Scrutiny Panel.
Councillor Aesop, do you have anything further to add to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Councillor Patrick, Councillor Aesop. Councillor Patrick is correct. There is a constitutional obligation on you to give your best endeavours to respond to the question.
I believe I have answered the question. It's a matter of interpretation. He sees things differently to I do. Thank you.
Can we have the supplementary, please, Councillor Patrick? It's down to interpretation, sorry.
Right, clearly not, Madam Mayor. So my supplementary is, in the community chair's blatant refusal to answer the question, which constitutionally she is obliged to do so.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Is there a question? You need to stay on top of this with respect.
I think we'll let him carry on, Councillor Freeston. Thank you.
I've not had an advance to my first question. I think I've got a little bit of leeway. Given that the Chair of Community Scrutiny is constitutionally obliged to answer my first question, but actually refused to do so, does she feel she's actually fit and proper to actually continue as Chair of Communities if she's not meeting her obligations under the terms of the Constitution?
Councillor Aesop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have answered my question. I've spoken and I've answered the question, and I stand by my comments and by the work I do for residents.
Thank you, Councillor Aesop. Item 9, Treasury Outturn Report. A report from the Portfolio for Finance, Resources and Assets containing details of Treasury management arrangements, activity and performance during the first of the 25-26 financial year. This report was considered by Cabinet at its meeting on the 10th of December. Councillor Harness, do you move the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will do and present the report.
Do we have a second?
Well,
sorry.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I have the right to present the report.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Treasury H1 Outturn Report 2025-26. All investments and borrowing transactions were in line with the approved 2025-26 Treasury strategy that was approved by this Council in February 2025. There are no necessary in-year policy changes to the Treasury management strategy. The details in the report update the half-year position against the updated economic environment and any budgetary changes already approved. The revised central case for rates is now short-term interest rates to fall from their current level of 4% to somewhere in the range of 3 to 3.25% over the next 18 months or so. Although this is good news for servicing future borrowing, uncertainty remains, and the implications for both investment and borrowing decisions will be closely monitored. With an increase in capital financing requirement over the next 3 years due to the capital programme, we will need to borrow, in a worst case scenario, up to £73 million over the next few years, as well as replacing maturing loans. As we know, gross external borrowing should not, except in the short term, exceed the capital financing requirement in the preceding year, plus estimates of any additional capital financing requirements for future years. The Council has an approved policy for borrowing in advance of need. Net debt as of the 30th of September 25 was £135.1 million, with total debt of £166.8 million and £31.7 million of investment. It is worth noting our borrowing has increased by £4.8 million over the last 12 months, which is less than a 3% rise. This increased borrowing has not come at a materially higher interest rate, which is good news. The outturn borrowing is now predicted to be £193 million due to the changes in anticipated delivery of the capital programme. This is £6 million than when the TMSS was set in February 2025. The Council has £6.5 million of long-term liabilities due to the IFSR 16 liabilities legislation. These leases were already existed prior to the IFSR and therefore do not represent a direct call to revenues. During the period, the Council maintained an under-borrowed position, borrowing short-term from other local authorities, and this remains part of the borrowing strategy, as well as spending down our cash balances. £0.225 million of long-term debt was repaid during the year. The investment balances range between £17.7 million and £73.7 million at an average balance of £42 million. We outperformed the benchmark comparator with an average return of 4.21%, generating £0.894 million of interest in the first half of 25-26. For 26-27, a minimum cash level of £10 million was targeted, and there were no breaches of this or other prudential indicators. The ratio of financing cost to net revenue stream is forecast to be below 10% in 2025-26, 26-27, and 27-28. However, the cost of borrowing and inflation will be closely monitored to better inform decision making. Madam Mayor, I will therefore move the recommendations as laid out. That's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Harness. Do I have a seconder?
I rise to second the recommendations, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Mill.
It was a very interesting report. I thought there was some positives, the fact that we benchmark very well compared with other authorities, and although our sort of return compared to other authorities has gone down, we're still getting a better return than who we're benchmarked against. So that's a real positive. I also note the fact that we're forecast to generate £1 million worth of interest through our investments, which is a real positive as well. I would question whether the 10 million cash balance that we ensure in forward liquidity is sufficient, given the fact that that is significantly lower than the other authorities that we benchmark against. But that's something which I'm sure the portfolio holder will sort of look into. One point of concern, however, is the percentage of the council's income required to service its debt. By 2017, which is under 18 months' time, this is forecast to be within a smidgen of 10%, 9.7% is what the forecast is, which is close enough to 10% to set alarm bells ringing. Just focus on that for one moment. That's £1 in every £10 of income is going on interest payments. Now, most residents in the borough, not all, but most, pay their council tax in 10 monthly instalments, April through to January each year. Now, I suspect most residents will be concerned that 1/10 of their contributions in council tax, hard-earned money from local residents, is going in interest payments to service debt. It means that one of their monthly payments, if they're making 10, isn't going towards social services, children's services, not going towards pothole repairs, it's not going towards grass cutting or towards tackling fly tipping. It's going on interest on debt. And that's something which we should all be concerned about in this chamber. So I'd like to congratulate the Section 151 officer and his Treasury team, because I think they're doing a cracking job. But I would raise concerns with the portfolio holder and the council cabinet at the amount of debt and the amount of interest we are paying on that debt, given that interest rates are on the way down and we are just a smidgen under 10%. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Councillor Holland.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add my congratulations to council officers for what I think is continuing excellent Treasury management. But just to echo Councillor Mill's point there in terms of debt levels, I think sometimes it's easy to get a little bit complacent, shall I say, because we see something called the authorised limit for external debt, which, because it uses the word authorised, infers that government or some other body is objectively setting boundaries for us. And of course, that's not the case. We've pretty much set our own boundaries within the fairly loose confines of the Local Government Act. I think it's easy sometimes to get lulled into a false sense of security. The numbers are still the numbers. Even if it's well within the debt level that we set ourselves, it's still debt. And the risk is, I think, as Councillor Mill was alluding to there as well, that we set the debt level according to what the interest we can pay in terms of our revenue budget. And as our revenue budget increases, we say, provided we keep the interest payments below 10%, we can continue to borrow. But of course, the numbers are still rising. As we look through all these figures, we see the numbers continually rising year after year.
Any more speakers? Councillor Henderson. Yeah, Councillor Henderson.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. I think the issue is, what do we do about it? So we're in danger of admiring the problem of our interest rates that we're paying on our loans. So the point that Councillor Mill made about getting on for £1 million of income and interest from investments, it's dwarfed by the interest that we're paying to 8 of 10 of our top creditors. So the interest rate that we're paying on our loans is higher than the yield that we're getting on our investments. And if we get to a certain level with that, it will mean that we need to rebalance the way our portfolio operates. So I don't think this is an issue for officers in terms of their execution of the plan here. I think this is an issue of strategy. And I think that if we don't get our strategy right, then what this current cabinet is at risk of doing is kicking the can down the road. So some of our borrowing this year was lower than we expected it to be. And it's because of deferring the pace of some of our bigger capital projects. So we've had to borrow less this year than we thought we'd have to borrow, but we still got to borrow it. So we're building a lumpy debt into future years for the next cabinet that comes along when this cabinet shuffles away. So there is a problem with our borrowing strategy. And I think what we need to do is develop a way of resolving that problem, having a discussion about it. And so if this isn't on the agenda for the portfolio holder or for the scrutiny committee, then I would suggest it should be. Otherwise, we've got a challenge. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Jackson, right to reply.
Yes. Thank you. Not the right to reply, Madam Mayor.
Yeah,
I've just reserved the right to speak as seconder. I'm sure the portfolio holder will probably respond to some of these points, but I just want to take the opportunity. I mean, we have this discussion every time this report comes to full council about both the level of debt and the repayment regime for that debt, and the information with regard to the size of the debt is set out on page 47 of the agenda papers, and I'm just looking for the information with regard to the repayments, which I think is on page 61 of the agenda papers. So I think there is actually a strategy for us deciding or determining what the level of borrowing is going to be, and that's when we set the capital programme, and that of course is done at the budget meeting each year in February. But of course the capital programme is kept under continuous review, and all capital projects are delivered based on a business case which is regularly reviewed. And of course there have been examples in the past where when the business case became less favourable for a variety of reasons, capital projects have been removed from the programme. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go ahead with everything that is in the capital programme. And I think that's reflected in the fact that the estimated debt level that we have at the end of each financial year is a worst case scenario based on the fact that we deliver all the projects and that we have to borrow to do that. Quite on occasions, projects are dropped. On other occasions, we get more grant funding in to help us to deliver those projects. So I think I can say that invariably we end up at the end of the year with less debt than was estimated we're going to have when we started the financial year. And I think the numbers we have in front of us tonight are a really good example of that. So the total debt that's set out on page 47 in the table at the 31st of March this year was almost 189 million, but by the 30th of September it dropped to 167 million. And if you actually look at the net debt, it started off at 158 million and dropped down to 135 million. So that is a considerable reduction. Now, you know, as an administration, we want to have the lowest level of debt possible for the local authority. Everybody wants to do that. We don't want to be saddling people across the borough with unnecessary debt. But we do, of course, have the largest regeneration programme that this borough has ever seen. And we are, as a council, making a contribution to some of those schemes. And we're seeing the transformational effect they're having across North East Lincolnshire. And we'll be seeing more of that in the forthcoming year. So, as I always say every year, this is a bit like the mortgage on your house. We're investing money in the borough and we're having to borrow to deliver some of those improvements. That is the way that if you were building an extension to your house, you would probably fund it that way by adding money to your mortgage, adding borrowing to your mortgage rather. Now, when we look at the figures on page 61, the ratio of financing cost to net revenue stream, where we're keeping the figures below 10%. Again, we want to keep that as low as possible. But again, invariably, as the year progresses, that particular figure does tend to reduce. So, for example, if we look in the table, the 2025-2026 original estimate was
1 minute, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Was 8.8%, and by the end of 2025-26, the revised estimate is 6.5%. So it's dropped by 2%, and that is well below the 10% prudent limit which we've set, and indeed which previous administrations also used as well. So I think the members who are criticising these figures are exaggerating them, which I suggest is largely for political reasons. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but the debate's got quite lively about finance and I can't resist. So I'm not going to be standing tonight to talk about eye-watering levels of debt, much as the leader was probably anticipating I would be actually talking about that. But really, I got to just really thinking about how it's interesting that we've got the Conservatives now defending debt levels, where we probably remember the general election of 2010, when there was all the discussion about how debt was a bad thing, got to get this debt down, and then it's all spiraled out of control. But we're not here for the national scene ultimately. But I do remember very well when this new administration took control of the council and they had a press release on the levels of debt that they'd uncovered, was their own words, as if they didn't know what those levels of debt were. And you might remember Councillor Jackson, you did a picture for the Telegraph, and I think you were sat where you are now, and the then Deputy Leader, Councillor Fenty, was sat actually on that desk, and he had a very serious look on him that kind of suggested he was going to sell me a very nice 5-door hatchback with one careful previous owner. And yes, I fully acknowledge. Thank you.
Get on to the question.
Yes. Well, it's a point I'm making, if that's okay,
Can
Madam
we get
Mayor.
on to your point,
I will, yeah, I'm on more than point. Now, whilst I appreciate the 10% figure on servicing debt, it is largely arbitrary. There's no cliff edge. If we go over that 10%, ultimately, it's a bit of a benchmark. But I think really what residents would be like to really ask about this is, does this debt actually represent value for money? And of course, it can be quite hard to actually establish that, especially when you look at things that actually provide social value, the new CCTV network being an obvious example of that. And I think where we need to actually move forward as a council is perhaps actually think more about when we actually invest and we're looking at spend to save, how we actually identify perhaps part of our debts, how we're actually producing a saving actually in that and actually show a better financial return. And not to blow my own trumpet, but when I was portfolio for finance, we had the property rationalisation programme, which we had to do off the back of austerity. And I forget the exact figure we actually spent. It wasn't a small amount on the estate, but I think that actually paid for itself some 6 or 7 years ago and is actually saving council tax payers money to this very day. A very good example of value. But I think when residents look around the borough, what they see in terms of spending, a lot of the debt we actually incurred was various funding we put towards grants we got from government, because it was the way of the last Tory government to actually produce grants for councils to allegedly grow the economy. And when you actually look at where some of these grants have actually ended up in the case of our council, you can go to Cleethorpes, you can go to Grimsby, you see a lot of empty holes in the ground, delayed capital programmes and no return whatsoever, social or otherwise. And although supposedly there are good reasons for this, I think this really comes down to a litmus test. Do the residents of this borough see value for money in this debt being incurred? And I, for one, overwhelmingly would say, I don't think they see that value. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Any more speakers? Move to a vote. All those in favour?
Oh, sorry. You beg your pardon, Madam. Councillor Harness.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Harness. Right to respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm very easy to forget about. It has been a good debate, I must admit. And I think it has come out in the debate that we are lucky to have such a good Treasury management team. And I work closely with them, and they do take all these parameters seriously. They look ahead, and I think we're well informed. As we've heard, the 10% figure does always seem to be on the horizon, and fortunately, so far as we move forward, we've always been remarkably below the 10% figure, and let's hope that continues. Another example of Treasury management activity, Councillor Jackson referenced £189 million, falling to £167 million. A lot of that was our Treasury management team thinking ahead, potential for a LOBO call and some liquidity issues at the end of the financial year. So once those issues were paid down, we're back to the £167 million. So excellent, well done by our Treasury management team. So I've got very little else to add to it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harness. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 10, calculation of council tax base for 2026 to 2027. To consider a report from the portfolio holder for finance, resources and assets, seeking approval of the council tax band for 2026-2027 and outlining the proposed council tax support scheme for the forthcoming year. This report was considered by Cabinet on the 10th of December. Councillor Harness, will you move the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will move the recommendations and present the report, if that's okay. As we all know, the council tax base is a statutory requirement that forms the basis of calculation of the council tax charge for the years 2026-27. The tax base needs to be agreed and notified to major precepting bodies by no later than the end of January 2026. The calculation is informed by the number of Band D properties and is adjusted by anticipated collection rates and the cost of applicable discounts and the local council tax support scheme, which was introduced in the years 2013-14. At 5.4, the report details an increase in the tax base to 47,214.4 from the 2025 position of 47,205.5, equating to an additional 8.9 Band D equivalent properties, delivering an extra 17k based on the current NELC Band D equivalent properties. This is built into the council's MTFB on an ongoing basis. At 5.4, the bullet points detail factors contributing to the substantial increase in applications for council tax support for working age residents. Healthy housing numbers growth, which are 552 new liabilities for 24-25 and 354 new liabilities to date in this financial year, has been offset by demand for the local council tax support scheme, as identified at 1.6 of the report. At 1.7, we see the cost of council tax discount is £12.4 million, of which £5.28 million is mandatory pensioner support. The NELC Council Tax Support Scheme for working age residents offers a maximum reduction of 65% off the council tax bill. The specific percentage of support for an applicant receives is determined by a banded scheme based on the household size and weekly net income. The current disabled discretionary element costs £7.12 million. This results in a reduction in the council tax base and the council tax raised. There is no change to the qualifying criteria for the council tax support scheme for the years 2026-27. At 1.9, there are details of the empty properties premiums as per government flexibilities. As of November the 3rd, there were 554 properties with an additional empty property premium accounting for £0.8 million of council tax billing. Premiums are at an additional 100%, charged for properties empty for over 12 months and 300% for properties empty over 10 years. This figure is subject to change as properties go off and on the additional premium. A review of the single person discount was undertaken during the 24-25 financial year, as detailed in 1.11. This led to an additional billing of approximately £1 million through removed discounts. It is worth noting, as in 2.4, there are currently 27,563 properties as of the 4th of November claiming the 25% council tax charge single person discount, reducing the billing by £12.2 million. Appendix A details the council tax D equivalents per ward. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendations as laid out.
Do I have a seconder?
I rise to second the recommendations, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Do I have any speakers? Councillor Holland.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As the portfolio holder says, we've seen an increase this year in that Band D equivalent of 8 from 4205 to 4214. If we compare that with last year it increased by 404 and the year previous by 1091. So this year we've essentially flatlined, and it's interesting to look at some of the causes of that. So if we look at the current discretionary element of the scheme relating to the working age population entitled to council tax support, including those who are disabled. So this year that amounts to £7.12 million. If we look at the last year, then we see that the cost was £5.1 million. So in 1 year, that is discretionary element of the scheme relating to council tax support for working age population has increased by £2 million, and that's why I think we've seen this flat line. So I think it's really important moving forward. We understand the underlying causes of that. Yes, I understand that, there's been greater publicity, but I think we really need to get to grips, particularly through scrutiny, as to understand why this is a trend or why this is just a one-off blip. Because obviously it's one of our strategies that we grow the council tax base essentially by building more houses. But if that's not going to be negated by big increases in the discretionary element of council tax support, essentially we're not going to move forward. So I think it's really, really important that over the next few months we get a thorough understanding of that.
Any more speakers? Oh, Councillor Henderson.
Thanks very much. I've got a slightly more red top and less forensic view of the data than Councillor Holland's given. I really worry that we are sleepwalking into setting a really precise number here without the fundamental underlying data being understood and being correct. It's not clear how much we need to cover our costs and we don't know our liabilities. For example, we've got a temporary increase in budget for Corporation Road Bridge. We let it be known in the press we intended to pursue the previous contractor for compensation, and so it doesn't take a genius to work out that the temporary increase is a payday loan dependent on that pursuit being successful. So are we really running our budget on that? Yeah, get it.
That's legally privileged information, you know that.
That's in the public domain.
Can we not discuss it in open chamber?
We can, but it's in the public domain. But my point is, are we really running our budget based on these kinds of bets? Then we're making assumptions on our yield from council tax. We expect that our building of new homes will see people coming to the area for work, which they aren't, coming here to retire, which they are, but that brings further stress to our amenities. And one other thing, as Councillor Holland points out, it assumes that people will upgrade homes, pushing them into higher bands, improving the tax take, but it isn't. The tax take isn't increasing significantly. Why not? Because we're subsidising the upgrades with increased levels of discounts. So the Cabinet's economics doesn't work. And I understand Councillor Holland's point that we need to really dig into this, but our time for this is really short. We have this discussion every year, as the leader remarked earlier on. Every year we're pushed along a path without the right information, justified by members being told that we need to agree an amount or else. In the new year, I expect that if we pass this, based on this financial value that's in this paper, that we'll be coming back for the full amount of council tax. I expect this is what the Cabinet and others are currently modelling as they look to budgets for next year. If they make a political decision not to, because the public doesn't see the benefit, then they'll need to cut services or increase borrowing. The public will be entitled to ask, where are we making efficiency gains? But we aren't. We know this because—
Councillor Henson, we're setting the budget in February, not tonight, please.
We are, but we're setting, the paper says, setting the council tax base is a statutory requirement that forms the basis of the calculation of the council tax charge for the next year. And therefore my point is valid, is it not?
Councillor Henderson, it's just a technical calculation. That's all.
It doesn't matter. You're asking me as a member to vote on whether I accept this figure that's in this paper. And I'm giving the reasons why I will not accept that number, which I think I'm entitled to do.
Thank you.
So I'll finish really quick. So we know that this value is wrong because in previous meetings, I've asked the Cabinet about the biggest areas of council expenditure. I asked whether they see any savings from in-housing ECWANs. No. Whether they see any scope to decrease social care costs. No. Whether they forecast capital projects coming in under budget.
Councillor Henderson,
no.
I'm sorry, but we're discussing setting the council tax base.
Okay.
It's a formulaic approach which has been tried and tested in this council for time immemorial. Setting the budget proper in February.
So thank you, Monitoring Officer, but I'm fundamentally objecting to your view that because it's a tried and tested formula, it can't be debated. That's the function of this.
I'm happy for you to debate, but it's setting
Councillor Henderson, just to be clear,
The tried and tested formula is tried and tested across pretty much every council in the UK. This is a statutory requirement. We are compelled to use those formulas. So we haven't made them up. They are standard formulas. So that's what the monitoring officer is trying to explain to you. This report is a statutory requirement using standard methodology that is given to us to set the council tax base, not the budget.
I understand that, but the report includes a number of appendices which give figures that are the inputs into that algorithm you've described. And those inputs include our costs and our revenue. So I would have expected, in giving us that information, you'd be expecting us to debate it. I'm not debating the maths in the formula, I'm debating the inputs and the outputs from it, which I think I'm entitled to do. Shall I wrap it up so we can all go home? I think I'll just say that Councillor Harness has rolled the pitch on this tonight with his reference to making choices between social care and heritage, culture, assets and leisure amenities in his answer to Councillor Kazmarak's question. He started to roll the pitch on some of the choices that we've got to make. So I'd advise the Cabinet they're going to need a strong narrative when they come back and ask us to translate this number into a budget as we set council tax rates next year. And in the absence of that information, I'll not be supporting this paper. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't really want to get into the debate tonight that we'll be having, I suspect, at the budget and council tax setting meeting in February. But on the basis that this meeting is being live streamed, I think I just need to stand up and come back at some of the points that's been made by Councillor Henderson and Councillor Holland. I mean, I actually think there's plenty of information in this report explaining how this calculation is undertaken, and also explaining why we're seeing a greater demand for the council tax support scheme from working age residents this particular year. These are clearly set out in paragraph 5.5. We've made the scheme more accessible, which I think was something that the council asked us to do last year by reviewing the process by which residents can apply. There's been more local support organisations prioritising applications for financial support for service users. And there's also been closer links with universal credit, resulting in additional applications for support. If these people, you know, are genuinely suffering hardship and meet the criteria, it's absolutely right that they should be getting the council tax support. So I very much see this as a one-off situation in that we've made the whole thing more accessible. Now, with regard to the amount of money that's coming in, I did actually request some information on housing numbers. So they aren't actually in the report, but we did actually have an additional 354, or will be having an additional 354 Band D equivalent properties in this particular financial year. So that's actually quite a significant increase in the property base. So in that respect, you know, that will be an ongoing figure in future years as well. Now, you know, we have this argument every year from Councillor Henderson, who seems to ask for lots of additional information and then never actually seems to do anything with it. And he's always predicting every year since he's been on the council, he's predicted that this council is just about to go into financial meltdown. And that has never actually happened. In reality, our finances are in a strong position, and we're doing a lot better than most other authorities up and down the country. And it was only, I think, 3 years ago that Councillor Holland was suggesting at a meeting and subsequently mentioned it in social media that the council was heading for a Section 114 notice. And that never happened, and we know nowhere near that either at this time. So I think it's about time people stopped setting hairs running about the finances of this council and actually looked at the figures and the performance and the way that we are maintaining the finances of this council in a prudent way while still delivering services. Councillor Henderson talked about cutting services. At no time have services been cut. and we're still maintaining a strong and healthy capital programme, which is resulting in investment across the borough. So let's have a look at the facts rather than just trying to discredit what we're doing all the time and setting these hairs running. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Point of personal explanation, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jackson, as a leader, references what I said a few years ago. I didn't actually mention specific notices, but I did say at that time, yes, there was a potential risk of bankruptcy. Let's be clear, we had a government appointed commissioner come and give all councillors a briefing not too long ago. And you know what he said? He said, well, you didn't go bankrupt. And he said, and you were at serious risk of bankruptcy. That was from a government
point of order. Point of order, Madam Mayor. Point of order. I really don't think that that was a legitimate point of order. That was clearly a response to a right to reply to Councillor Jackson, which he's not entitled to, and I think he was out of order. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm quite happy to raise it as a point of order, Madam Mayor. Let me raise a point of order. Okay, let's raise a point of order.
Councillor Holland.
Councillor Jackson said
Councillor Holland, you raised it as a point of personal explanation. You validly gave your point of personal explanation. I'm obliged to you. Councillor Lindley, it wasn't a point of order. There was no breach of standing orders. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Harness, right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah. I think as we move forward, there'll have to be some analysis of why there is such a demand for local council tax support, and I think we deserve that analysis, and I'm sure we will get that. Because when we look at this, housing numbers are excellent. There's no doubt about it. And when we come to the year end, you know, we're going to have excellent housing numbers, and that all equates to council tax. We know that. Yeah, but I've got nothing more to add to that. Okay, thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. Item 11, North East Lincolnshire Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy 2025 to 2035. To consider a report from the portfolio holder for health, wellbeing and adult social care seeking adoption of the North East Lincolnshire Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy 2025 to 2035. This report was considered by Cabinet at its meeting on the 10th of December. Councillor Shreve, will you move the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's giving everybody a chance now to have some real excitement. I bring this joint health and wellbeing strategy to full council this evening for adoption. In doing so, I would like to pay tribute to the Director of Public Health and the team for the work that went into this strategy, the overriding vision of which is to create a borough where health and well-being are built into everyday life through good work, safe homes, strong communities and a healthy environment so that every resident can live a longer, happier life. The strategy sets out how, as a marmotte place, we can improve health and well-being for everybody in the borough by addressing the social determinants of health through 8 building blocks and 3 foundational principles: supporting children and young people, protecting the environment, and advancing inclusion health. For clarity, the 8 building blocks within the report are good work, money and resources, housing, education and skills, the food we eat, transport, friends, family and communities, and our surroundings. Each of these are explored in depth within the report with evidence, resident voice, and a clear actions for change. Working within the Developing Marmot framework, the aims of the strategy are to encourage collaboration across sectors, empowering residents, and ensure that every individual has the opportunity to thrive and live a longer, happier life. The joint health and wellbeing strategy has been developed through strong engagement with local residents, partners and stakeholders, and draws on the findings of the 2024 Our Place, Our Future survey and the Adolescent Lifestyle survey. The strategy has been endorsed by the Health and Wellbeing Board, who is and will continue to be the host of this strategy at its meeting on the 2nd of October 2025. The strategy has been very well received by the Health and Wellbeing Board and its partners. It was also referred to the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Panel for consideration and comment. The strategy has been through a range of governance tiers prior to being presented to Cabinet for consideration and onward referral to full council at this meeting. Feedback has highlighted that the strategy is well written, flows effectively, and sets an ambitious goal to improve health across North East Lincolnshire. Partners have particularly praised the inclusive approach taken during the development, noting the extensive collaboration with a wide range of teams and organisations. I would also mention, Madam Mayor, that the next steps will see further development of outcome measurements, which will be incorporated on a progressive basis in the monitoring report insofar as they are not currently included. I would now move the recommendations as set out within the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Do I have a seconder?
I rise to second the report, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to reference the young lady called Faith in this report. And I'm going to say she's going to be bitterly disappointed. It says about having greener places for children to play, bins that aren't overflowing and parks that are of a good standard. But I'm afraid we get report after report that comes to full council and indeed the scrutiny panel that I sat on. And I made these points that I am getting fed up to the back of my teeth of having these reports come to us just to be noted. It makes us all feel better about ourselves that we're saying nice words, but it's quite obvious, it's common sense. We don't need to do reports it seems every year, but maybe they're 5-year, 10-year plans that never seem to be realised. And I can't see the difference between now and whenever the last plan that was made, that we want to make our borough a healthier place. We want people to live longer. I want people to live healthier lives. It's common sense. Why do we waste so much time producing reports? Let's just get on with it and deliver it. But I can tell you, this young lady called Faith that's referenced in this report will be bitterly disappointed because we spend more time on reports than we do actual decisions and implementing things that will make a tangible difference. And that's the most frustrating thing about being a councillor. That you sign off on this report today, it will make zero difference to your residents other than to make you guys feel better about yourself. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Freeston. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As ever, I respect Councillor Freeston's opinion, but on this occasion, I disagree with him. This is my day job. I've been doing this for 35 years. This is one of the best documents I've ever read in my job. And I'm really proud when I go and represent our borough and I talk to people in other health and social care systems about what we're doing and the quality of this piece of work. I don't think it's a waste of time. I don't think that this is a document that's just going to gather dust on shelves. I think this is a real blueprint for change. And I commend Councillor Shreve and all the other people who've worked with him on this This is a really hard time to be in health and social care at the moment. People who work in healthcare are facing 18,000 redundancies, the biggest wave of redundancies that have ever happened in public service in Western Europe. It's really difficult. And they've mucked in and they've delivered a fantastic document here. And it's now on us, because the future Council of Freeston will be what we make it. Go and knock on doors, we come to this meeting, if it gathers dust on the shelves, that's on us. It's on us to make sure that Faith has the future that's set out in this document. And one of the things I really like about it is that it gives a very strong blueprint for change. And it's got everybody, well, most people, coalesced around some common ideas of decency, social mobility, improving our environment. And it'll help us as a council figure out how we organise ourselves in a way that moves away from some of these stovepipes of portfolios that we've got into a more holistic view of what our residents need. So I think it's absolutely fantastic, and thank you to everybody who was involved in putting it together.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Linley.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As Chair of the Health and Oral Social Care Scrutiny, and I totally agree with what Councillor Henderson said, and disagree, unfortunately, with Councillor Freeston. I think it was wholeheartedly supported by scrutiny. They thought it was an excellent report, and having been around in this council for quite some time, I can quite honestly say that this is one of the best joint health and wellbeing strategies that I've seen. It's certainly an improvement over recent years, and I think there's been some tremendous work done by officers. Councillor Freeston talks about seeing too many reports and we should be doing stuff and not getting the reports. We've got to get the reports first. We've got to do that work to find out how we're going to implement strategies, what we're going to do. We can't just go out and do it carte blanche, otherwise it goes wild. So we've got to have these reports. These reports are important. And we felt as a scrutiny committee, we can see the value in that, the importance in it, and it was well received, Madam Mayor. So, and just well done to all concerned in putting this report together. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Linley. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was obviously at the scrutiny meeting. And one of the things that's interesting for me is that I didn't really say much about the report. And anybody that knows me on scrutiny, if I don't say much, it must be a good thing. And all I could pick up in a negative way was some of the photographs and the language. This report sets out a vision. And, a vision for the health and well-being of this community. And I support this report in looking at that vision. We're opposition councillors, but if I want in support, if I didn't think it set out an ambitious vision, I wouldn't be standing up here and doing it. But we need to recognise when there is a vision that will look to do good in the community in regards to health. We know anyone that's been on health for a long time knows there's wider determinants of health that have caused issues in this borough for a long time. So something needs to change, and we've been advocating this from scrutiny for quite a while. And if this is a response to that, and I think it is in some ways, that I'm pleased that this has come forward. When you set out a vision, what is it? What is it? Is it just sat here or stood here talking about a document? Of course it's not. And anyone that thinks that, they don't know how actually things get done. You set out a vision. You start putting into practice the physical practices that aim towards that vision. And you start then getting results from those actual practices that you do. Without the vision, without the direction, nothing gets done. And so I'm gobsmacked at the earlier speech that doesn't want a vision for the health of this well-being, health and well-being of this
Point
borough.
of personal clarification, that is clearly not what I said. I was expressing my sincere frustration that we get report after report, and it's very misleading for councillor to say that. So I'd ask you to retract. Thank you.
I won't withdraw that statement because clearly what was said is that nothing gets done from these reports. And if nothing gets done from these reports, that's a clear indication that actually they want less reports. And I take that as being an inferment that they don't want a vision for this document. If the monitoring officer rules that what I've said is incorrect, I'm quite willing to withdraw, but that's my interpretation of what's being said. Right, moving on, the vision clearly sets out a different way to try to move some of them health issues that we've got in this town that we've had for a long, long time. So we should rally around, all parties should rally around it and say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's support what needs to be done. Let's look at the action plans when the action plans come. You know, we're not going to support everything on the action plan. We might say, you know, this needs to be done better, or that might need to be done better, but that's part of scrutiny. That's part of being held to account. But the vision, I don't think we can actually criticise. So therefore, I'm standing up to say I support this document. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I sit on the Health and Wellbeing Board along with Councillor Shreve and Councillor Cracknell. And I'd just like to thank Councillor Shreve for the phenomenal amount of work he's done on the Health and Wellbeing Board by bringing us all together along with officers and partners who sit on, partners from the community who sit on the Health and Wellbeing Board, to put together a document which has been worked on collaboratively and enjoys support from across partners across the whole of the community in North East Lincolnshire. I think it's a very good report. We've got some very intractable problems in North East Lincolnshire, not unique to North East Lincolnshire, it happens in other parts of the country as well, but in terms of, you know, the long-term health of the ageing population, particularly in North East Lincolnshire, and we need to try and do something to tackle those problems if they aren't to become a major burden on North East Lincolnshire in the future. So you know, can have a debate about whether or not all of them are the right way forward. I'm sure that debate will continue, but we do need to be moving forward with the vision, and I think this report does set out this vision. I just want to pick up on the point that Councillor Freeston made, and I would just refer members to section 3 of the report on page 76, and it says Health and Wellbeing Boards are established under the Health and Social Care Act 2012 to provide a forum for key leaders from the local health and care system to work together to improve the health and well-being of their local population. There is a statutory duty shared with the integrated care boards to produce a joint strategic needs assessment and a joint health and well-being strategy for the local area. As such, the development of a joint health and wellbeing strategy is a legal requirement, and no alternatives options have been considered. Now, Madam Mayor, I always thought reform was a party of law and order, but it would seem to me that Councillor Freeston tonight is suggesting that we break the law by not having a health and wellbeing strategy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Farron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say I really welcome this. I actually think that health is the biggest wealth that you can actually have. I think it's everything, and I think Councillor Holland will agree that this is a particular interest in the panel that I sit on, that he's chair of. We'll be working collaboratively on this in tourism. Just to be clear, I see this here as the aims and objectives to get the outcomes that we need to do for our statutory requirements. And I just want to say thank you. This is one of the best reports I've seen. It makes me very happy. It's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Farron. Councillor Morland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologise for being late, but I had a accident in my car on the way here, so apologies for being late for the meeting. I stand as someone who's worked in this borough as a social worker, and I'm well aware of the deprivations this borough has. And sadly, over the last 20 odd years, we have gone backwards in many ways, not just locally, but nationally. But that's another story. I do welcome this report because I think it behoves us to actually work across the board. Just as we do with children, we should be doing this across the way. And I would like to say, especially to Councillor Freeston, I'm very proud to have worked with members of the Conservatives and other groupings to actually make and agree to Marmot, this council being a Marmot place. I'm proud of that, and I think we all should be. It's a way forward. It shows a commitment, and this report does that, Councillor Freeston. It does that through telling us what we will achieve legally. But I want to go a little bit further. I think it behoves our community that we work together strategically and that we all take accountability for what goes on in our wards and report back, but also work collaboratively across our communities, but also with our professionals and any other, and have an integrated approach to health. I'm not going to go and repeat everything that's been said previously. The only thing I would say, there's a girl called Faith in this, I understand. Well, I would ask Councillor Freeston to have faith in the council he's been voted to. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morland. Councillor Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very refreshing to see. The report outlines good collaboration with various sectors, organisations and community groups who do outstanding work, so I'd personally like to thank and congratulate them. I'm sure the whole council will be behind me on this. Madam Mayor, there's lots of silo working going on out there across the borough in all sectors, so this collaboration is much needed and welcomed given the scope of health within the borough of North East Lincolnshire. As an example of work that's going on, my own business, I've put a lot of funding and resources into public health, such as community cuppers, wellbeing walks, food bank support and housing. And myself and ward colleagues witness so many health equalities every day in the East Marsh, and I fully support this report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Emerson. Councillor Kasmarek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say, when I first read this report in the health scrutiny, it really shone a light. And since then, I've had more time to read it. I think I've read this report probably 4 times now. And every time I spot something I might have missed before. And if I may, Madam Mayor, I'm just going to point out a few of the things that I've really picked up on in the report that I think needs to be highlighted today. That 10% of the most deprived wards in the country, 5 of them fall in North East Links, that being East Marsh, West Marsh, South, Heneage and Sydney Sussex. That makes up 1/3 of the wards in North East Links are amongst the 10% most deprived in the country. And I think that needs to be highlighted right now. Also, Madam Mayor, North East Links as a whole is the 29th most deprived local authority in England out of 317. But in the top 10% of authorities as a whole, there's a lot of deprivation in North East Links. And as much as I've always said, I've known there's problems in Sydney, Sussex. I've known there's problems in Heneage, in South, in Sydney, in Western East Marsh, and many of the other wards. But to actually see it on an official report, that the extent that has been the wake-up call for me, that this authority has work to do, but this report is what's going to get us there. It has got something in there for each and every scrutiny to go away and look at and really build upon. For example, in 8.6, I thought of Tish instantly when I read it, that in North East Links, the rate of people killed or injured on the roads is higher than both the regional and national rates. Maybe that's something Tish could pick up on. There's something here for probably communities, Madam Mayor, in 8.4. 9.8% of working age people have no qualifications in North East Links. This is what we would lose if we didn't have the report, Madam Mayor. All this opportunity for every single person in this room to come together, to look and say, actually, we have problems in North East Links, but this highlights the problems. Let's work on them together. Let's come together and actually make a difference. Instead of just saying, actually, we shouldn't have the report, because without the report, I wouldn't have had the wake-up call that I got from it, and I'm sure others wouldn't either. And for all those reasons, Madam Mayor, I am going to be supporting this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaczmarek. Councillor Shutt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maybe slightly controversial here, but I have some sympathy for Councillor Freeston and his view on reports. And if he stays around long enough, he might hear one I might call on later, which is a bad report possibly, but not this one. This is an excellent report. And I'm not going to go over, I'm going to be quite short. I'm sure you'll appreciate that, Councillor Freeston. I know you like that. Please pick your reports carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shutt. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Isn't it nice that in this chamber we can work together for North East Lincolnshire and come out with a great vision? Maybe goodwill in this chamber is actually happening, and we're actually trying to work collaboratively and come out with some great ideas to improve North East Lincolnshire. Great report for all of us. Most of us really think it's really good. So thank you very much, and I support this report.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Any more speakers? Councillor Shreve, right to reply.
Yes, I would. Fantastic. I'm really, really appreciative of the support around the chamber. My dear friend Oliver, I think you had a moment, my friend. I think you had a moment, so I'll forgive you. Whether the rest will, that's another matter. I think there were two things that I would say that make me relatively certain that this is going to succeed and be a success. First of all, co-production. It mentions in the report how many people have been involved in putting this report together. That's not just one-off meetings, constant meetings that involve of a lot more of the community than was previously the case. And that will continue to be the case. And the second reason I think it's going to be a success is I support it, and I will make sure it is. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. I will now take a vote on this matter. Show of hands. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 12.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I think it's time for me to leave. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Item 12, outside body appointment. Greater Lincolnshire Mayoral Combined County Authority Audit and Overview and Scrutiny Committee substitutes. To consider a report from the Monitoring Officer advising of a proposed appointments of substitute members to the Greater Lincolnshire Mayoral Combined County Authority, Audit Committee and Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Nominations for substitute members have been received for Councillor Croft and Schutt for the Audit Committee and Councillors Lindley and Humphrey for the Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Jackson, will you move the acceptance of these nominations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to propose those substitute members as you've outlined.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Clough.
Thank you. I second that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Speakers. Any speakers? I will now take a vote on this matter. All those in favour with a show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Mickleborough, and Merry Christmas. Item 13, Notice of Motion 1. A notice of motion has been submitted by Councillor Clough, seconded by Councillor Patrick, submitted in accordance with the Council's constitution. Councillor Clough, you have 10 minutes in which to propose your motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think it will take that long. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about an issue that affects more households in North East Lincolnshire than any of us that should feel comfortable with. The approach that we take to council tax debt. Across Grimsby, Cleethorpes and our surrounding villages, families are working hard to stay afloat, yet many find themselves overwhelmed the moment a single payment is missed. Our local citizens advice that council tax arrears are now one of the most common issues brought to them. Last year, they supported people with 332 council tax arrears cases. This year alone, it's already increased over the whole of last year, despite us having a review of it in the summer. Nearly a quarter of households here rely on universal credit, many working families, and many are already living with very little room for unexpected costs. Our collection rates remain around 93 to 94%, which sounds high, but that does still leave millions uncollected each year. Much of it owed by people who are not unwilling, but simply unable to cope with the immediate escalation built into the current process. Campaigners such as Martin Lewis have urged councils across the country to modernise the way that they handle council tax debt. Nowhere else does a single missed payment result in liability for the full year, followed by court costs and bailiff action, before any meaningful contact with residents. It's a system that is outdated and unnecessary. It's punitive and it does not help councils recover income in the long term. We meet people on a regular basis who are frightened to open their doors because their case has gone straight to enforcement. Many want to repay. They need an approach that recognises the circumstances and gives them a chance to get back on track. Other councils have already shown that a different approach works. Early engagement teams who speak to residents before enforcement, giving breathing space where vulnerability is identified and keeping recovery work in-house have all improved collection rates while reducing crisis and distress. These approaches are fair, they are practical, and they deliver better outcomes for councils and for residents. Grimsby and Cleethorpes are communities shaped by resilience and by people looking out for one another. Our approach to council debt should reflect those values. It should be fair, it should treat people with dignity, and it should support households to stay steady, not push them into greater hardship. A modern recovery system would then reduce the pressures on citizens' advice, who are seeing a surge in demand from residents who feel they have nowhere else to turn. The large gap between the amount passed to enforcement and what is actually recovered demonstrates that what we're doing is not working, and it's not demonstrating unwillingness to pay. It's demonstrating the ability, not having the ability to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clough. Do I have a seconder?
You do indeed, Madam Mayor, and I reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Harness. Oh, any speakers? Sorry, Councillor Harness.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I will support the notice of motion. Nobody wants to see any of our residents suffer unnecessary hardship because of debt. Debt management also requires constant review. As we know, council tax is our largest source of funding that supports everything we do as a council and essential to maintain frontline services. £77.4 million in this financial year, dependent on collection rates, delivering some 50% of our funding. Currently, collection rates are robust, and this is always a good guide of affordability. It is a legal requirement to pay council tax in the UK, established by an Act of Parliament. It is a statutory tax, not an optional contract, and a liability that does not depend on consent or a signed agreement. It is ranked as a priority debt because local councils have strong legal powers to recover unpaid amounts, and the consequences of non-payment are severe. It should be dealt with before non-priority debts like credit cards or unsecured loans. There is a strong argument that local government should be funded differently and in a more equitable way. For example, council tax is based on 1991 property values. A property in Grimsby will pay double for a Band D property than one in Westminster, with a considerable lower income per person. Perhaps the fair funding review will start to change the disparity between the two, Westminster and Grimsby. The system may well be broken, but we can only operate within the frameworks handed down by government and make the best of it. Council tax increases are not popular but inevitable. They can also be assumed by government of the day, I believe. The NELC management strategy, debt management strategy, was adopted in July. It is available on the council website, and I am happy to circulate the link if required. It is a guide as to how different types of debt, including council tax, are handled. It is a matter-of-fact document, as you can imagine. It must be. It is difficult to express compassion within a strategy within a requirement to pay. However, there is compassion. At 1.4 of the strategy document, under can't pay, it states will receive appropriate assistance and support through debt management and benefit advice, help to make and adhere to payment arrangements and understand options to minimise the costs in the future. 1.6 of the strategy very much aligns with the notice of motion, and I quote, "The council is committed to continuous improvement and it is essential that new approaches and ways of working will be introduced. This strategy will be reviewed regularly to allow it to be updated and to take any service improvements or changes into account." 1.5 of the strategy is titled "Won't Pay." It is essential that anybody with council tax debt engage with the council immediately. This is serious stuff. It is essential that a can't pay resident is not identified as a won't pay because of a failure to engage. Won't pay focuses on debt collection using appropriate tools of recovery depending on the individual's circumstances and their assets or income. So a delay in engagement may start a process, ultimately leading to a reminder, final notices, court action, liability order, enforcement agents, bailiffs, deductions from wages and benefits, charging orders and bankruptcy, and in rare cases, imprisonment, but only in England. So if a council tax payment is not received, then recovery letters are sent, signposting to debt advice. To finish, I will repeat a comment we recently released to the media following an inquiry. The council cannot stress enough how people who are
1 minute,
facing
councillor Harness.
financial difficulties must seek advice as soon as possible. There is support that may be available, and seeking help straight away is an important step to take to prevent the situation getting worse. If a person knows they are struggling or starts receiving letters reminding them of bill and non-payment, then immediate action is essential. This includes phoning the debt management team on 0300 030 0614 option 2 to discuss the situation. It may be a payment plan can be proposed and put in place. People on benefits or low incomes may be eligible for council tax support or even extra council tax support. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Harness. Councillor Freeston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Schott will be pleased that I'll be returning the courtesy and keeping myself brief. When I first heard about this motion, I have to say instinctively I was a little bit concerned because, as Councillor Harness said, it is a priority debt, and I think it is something that needs to be treated slightly different to credit card debt, etc. That said, I'm not an expert in it, and I will take Councillor Clough on her word. I know that she's put a lot of work into this, and since it is only requesting a review, I think I'd be happy to support that and then find out what the review comes to. It's not going to be binding, and of course the Cabinet would still maintain decision powers. But I do think in the grand scheme of things, the people that I've spoken to have told me that they've struggled with council tax in the past. And the people that told me that were perhaps those that I wouldn't have expected to. There were people who were working, in my eyes, decent working people. And I was surprised when they said, actually, yeah, I've struggled in the past with it. For me, my instinctive reaction was that, are we going to make it easier for those people who just don't want to pay and choose to spend the money on other items, which we do know is a proportion of society, not all, though I will clarify. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Freeston. Councillor Holland.
Yes, thank you for the Mayor. So yeah, we've got our document, the North East Lincolnshire Council Debt Management Strategy, which was last reviewed in July 2025, sorry, just a few months ago. And I benchmarked that against a document issued by the previous government in 2021 called Council Tax Collection Best Practice Guidance for Local Authorities. North and North East Lincolnshire are specifically mentioned in that document as demonstrating best practice in terms of enhanced relationships with debt advisors. So we are getting a lot right. We follow the principles set out in the government debt management vulnerability toolkit, for example. But it is very clear from reading the best practice guidance that we can do more to improve, and there are some gaps, particularly around rapid escalation. The Local Government Association also has published a document called Supporting Councils to Improve Revenue Collection with Behavioural Insights. Really interesting document, and it outlines again some great initiatives, and it's something that we can review ourselves against. I would have liked to see a little bit more clarity in terms of timescale and post-review process in the motion on notice, but the principle of reviewing that we actually do what we say we do, and also to benchmark against national best practice to look for continuous improvement is very sound, and I'm happy to support.
Any more speakers? Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to support the motion. I think any organisation should be prepared to go away and have a look at what it's doing again, just to review and benchmark and make sure that we're doing things as well as we possibly can. I think, as Councillor Harness said, we don't want to be pushing people into debt if it's not necessary, or we don't want to be subjecting them to debt recovery processes if that's not required. But again, as Councillor Harness said, and indeed Councillor Freeston, we do need to differentiate between those who can't pay, who we need to try and help, and those who won't pay, who we need to make sure we do get the money out of eventually. So I will be supporting this motion. I just wanted to, I may have misheard Councillor Clough, but again, just based on the fact that this meeting is being live streamed and the public might be listening, I think she said that our council tax collection rate was only 93%. My understanding is that on an ongoing basis, it's about 98% every year, which suggests to me, that we are doing things right if we are getting a 98% collection rate. If it was only 93%, I think there would be more to worry about. So I'm just challenging that figure. Maybe we're getting our figures from a different place. I don't know. But I just think that needs to be corrected. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Wheatley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to support the motion. I speak to residents on a regular basis, and ultimately, if a resident and a person can't afford to pay the incremental payment, how are they supposed to be able to afford the full amount when that is then requested from them? The existing process is, whilst I agree it's legal, I do think that it's slightly over the top in that a letter dropping on somebody's mat 2 or 3 days after the 1st of the month, frightening people witless because they've missed a payment or allegedly missed a payment, and when it's potentially due on a Friday and they get a letter on the Monday and the actual office is closed on the Saturday and the Sunday is quite scary. I do think that particular option is a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, really. The letters are, as I just said, are scary and almost always unnecessary because people do want to pay. We've just heard that 98 or 93 or some figure in between those two do pay the council tax. But the other point that I want to make is that mistakes are made with the letters. I've had several residents who have paid and have got receipts and can show that they've got receipts, and yet I've still received both letters and on some occasions some court summonses, which is even more scary, especially when they've actually been able to pay their council tax and have the receipts for those. So I absolutely believe that a review of these processes is necessary. I welcome the motion, and I do hope that as part of the review of those processes, we do look at potentially the timings of letters that go out, and also try and tighten up on some of the mistakes that occur with letters going out to people. Absolutely, I accept that mistakes happen with people. You know, it's not always possible to letters overlap with payments, and that's absolutely understandable. But generally, if a summons has gone out, it means that you've missed more than one payment, and yet if somebody can present with a receipt for all of them, I think that we're on a bit of a sticky wicket. So welcome the motion. I welcome the process review, and I look forward to seeing positive outcomes from this being brought fairly quickly, I would have hoped, and not drag it on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any more speakers? Oh, sorry, Councillor Morland.
Madam Mayor, as we're live and as the leader wants the correct figures, I've just gone on the NE Links website, and the collection of council tax for 2023-24 was 97.10%, and it is estimated to be 96.69% for 24-25. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morland. Any more? Councillor Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council tax is unfair. It might sound strange for a councillor to say that, like a butcher promoting veganism or a publican starting a temperance branch in his own premises, but bear with me. Council tax, historically, as many will know, was a hasty alternative to the dreaded community charge, better known as the poll tax. Benefits notwithstanding, council charges, unlike income tax or VAT, for example, are not connected to one's ability to pay, but on a notional value of property in bandings. Moreover, Those bandings over the last 35 years have created a massive discrepancy, authority to authority. Someone on a low income in the north of England in a lower value property can pay as much or at times more than someone in a higher value property with a higher income in the south of England, in an authority that has had the opportunity to suppress council tax because of local socio-economic factors, and thus those on lower incomes could more easily fall foul to council tax debt, in part because of their geography, at which point the rest of the year's debt is demanded, the legal process begins, and many fall into a spiral of debts, declining mental health, ruining lives and causing more damned misery. Each year, councils across the country send bailiffs to collect unpaid council tax from over 1 million households. As council tax debts rising sharply, councils' reliance on bailiffs risks pushing people into financial difficulty and to breaking points. These households are not avoiding payments. They are living with low incomes, unable to regularly save, often renting and facing soaring bills. They are simply struggling to make ends meet. Using bailiffs, who add expensive charges, have in some parts of the country been accused of harassment and intimidation. Increased debt only makes lives harder. Local authorities, who should be representing their residents, are instead punishing them. Not only does this bailiff-led approach fail people in debt, but evidence shows it fails councils and taxpayers too. Using bailiffs bears little relation to higher collection rates and even maybe self-defeating, increasing demand for housing and mental health support, for which local authorities are left to fund. And I would say someone I know I'm supporting actually at the moment, a resident. She's actually told me of her own problems, that she did fall behind on her council tax, which is absolutely perfectly fair, but she didn't realise that council tax can be difficult to navigate. She thought her attachment of earnings was the outgoing debt that she had from previous council tax bills, and also this year's council tax bill, and it wasn't this year's council tax bill. So immediately that entire bill was heaped on top and became another attachment of earnings, pushing to more destitution. Now, I would say, Madam Mayor, that I'm absolutely delighted to see that we're looking at perhaps unanimous support for this item this evening. And usually this time of the year, I make some sort of reference to maybe Councillor Jackson could do with 4 ghosts visiting on Christmas Eve, but I think they've earned the night off on this occasion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Clough, you're right. Councillor Shutt.
I'm going to be briefer than Councillor Houston again. I'm going to support this notice of motion because it's to the point and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Councillor Aythorpe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand to support this motion because residents across our borough, including in the East Marsh, are under real financial strain right now. People are watching every penny, and too many are already choosing between bills, food and heating. That's why it's right that we look carefully at how we manage council tax debt locally. The more responsive and humane our approach is, the more chance we have of helping people before they fall into a crisis they can't climb out of. But Madam Mayor, we also have to be honest about what is driving so many people into difficulty in the first place. Local councils can help ease the pressure, but we cannot undo the national decisions that are making household finances tighter in the first place. Frozen thresholds, higher tax rates and rising living costs are squeezing residents long before a council tax bill even lands on the doorstep. And if Labour councillors want to present themselves as standing up for struggling households in North East Lincolnshire, then they need to have a word with the government they now run. You simply cannot call for the relief locally while supporting national decisions that take more money out of the very pockets you claim to protect. If the plan is to help families stay afloat, then the first step is stopping their own government from drilling holes into the boat, because no amount of local speeches will patch that up.
The motion, please.
I am done. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been rather quiet tonight, and the reason is I've been quite enjoying the debate. You know, it's near Christmas. People are getting together in collaboration. People are seeing the need for doing stuff together, which is quite refreshing. You know, I've been on this council a long time, and then obviously we've just had a different type of speech. So, and that falls in a, it's just shocking for me, really, that happens when people are getting together, when Conservatives and Labour are looking forward for the residents, and you get a political speech that we've just had. So, going on from that, Madam Mayor, when we do the review, we're supposed to be a marketplace, and I think we should look at what welfare checks we might put in for people. You know, if you're having mental health issues, for example, and this could add the way we collect debt. It could add to those issues. I think you know, in the review, I'd like to see some consideration given to that part as well as other things. But I've really stood up to try and put that out to the council that welfare checks should be a part of the process, or at least considered. You know, because you know, we know in our borough that mental health is significantly higher than elsewhere. So with that in mind, you know, I'll sit down and obviously I'll support the motion, because if I didn't, I'd get told off.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any more speakers? Councillor Clough, like to reply?
I haven't got much to say, thank you, Madam Mayor, apart from it is nice to see everybody working together and not trying to pick holes in things for the sake of it. Most people doing that. I think things work better when we do that. There is room for debate and disagreement, of course, but just for the sake of a pot shot, I'm not sure that is beneficial to anybody, including residents as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, members, just to remind you that the refreshed standing orders call for a guillotine at 9:30 unless we suspend it in the usual fashion. What I'm minded to do is I'm sensing approval across the chamber to the motion that's live. I'm looking at group leaders. If group leaders are happy to just carry that on a show of hands rather than a recorded vote, I'm quite happy to deal with it on that basis. Thank you. Obliged. So, Madam Mayor.
All those in favour?
Thank you, members. That's unanimous. Madam Mayor, is it your wish to propose a suspension of that aspect of the guillotine at 9:30 so we can continue business?
Yes.
Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour of suspending the 9:30 guillotine? Thank you, members. All those against? Thank you, members. That's carried. Madam Mayor, is it your wish to adjourn for a short period?
Yes, please.
Members, can I suggest an adjournment of 15 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Item 14, notice of motion 2. A notice of motion has been submitted by Councillor Aysopp, seconded by Councillor Persant, submitted in accordance with the Council's constitution. Councillor Aysopp, you have 10 minutes in which to propose this motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't need the 10 minutes. My Liberal Democrat colleagues and I are bringing this motion forward because too many of our residents are living with the same disruption again and again. Burst pipes, leaks, water appearing in places it simply shouldn't. Madam Mayor, when you're getting messages at 6 o'clock in the morning about water running past someone's front door, or when a shop loses another day of trade because a water main has failed again, it becomes clear that this is not an occasional problem. It is a pattern and it's a predictable one. Madam Mayor, we have found that more than 340 Section 81 notices have been issued to Anglian Water across North East Lincolnshire in just 3 years. That number alone is alarming, but it still only tells part of the story. A Section 81 notice is what happens when a problem gets so serious the council has to enforce action, but it doesn't record the leaks that were patched up quietly, or the pipes that are deteriorating underground, or the temporary fixes holding together infrastructure that is long past its best. So if 340 notices reach the enforcement stage, we can be certain the true scale of strain on our water network is far higher. And it is our older wards where these weaknesses surface most often. East Marsh alone has had 42 notices since 2022. Madam Mayor, residents know the pipes are old. Anglian Water has confirmed it. What residents don't see is the plan to actually replace them. That's why this motion matters. It calls on the portfolio holder to produce a council report showing how many Section 81 notices are handled, how they're handled, what the council understands about hotspots in the network, and what steps we can realistically take through monitoring, escalation and partnership to ensure issues are acted on promptly. It also asks Anglian Water to attend scrutiny in public because our residents deserve answers that they can hear for themselves, not statements written in general terms. It asks the council leader to write to Anglian Water, Ofwat and the Secretary of State because a network producing this level of enforcement action needs national attention and a credible timeline for renewal. And finally, Madam Mayor, we ask that councillors are kept updated because this issue shouldn't disappear the moment a repair crew leaves the street. Residents deserve continuity, not silence. This motion is about making sure residents aren't left living with the same failures year after year. They deserve better than short-term fixes. They deserve certainty about what happens next and that we as a council stand with them. I ask Madam Mayor and our colleagues to support this motion for our residents, for our businesses and for the long-term resilience of our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aysopp. Councillor Sant, will you second the motion?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll wish you a Merry Christmas at this point, Aldo, but I'm just going to reserve my right to speak, so I'll speak later. Thank you very much.
Any speakers? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note in particular, well, I note the concerns that Councillor Aysopp is expressing, and I think we would all be somewhat frustrated by some of the actions of Anglian Water. I mean, for me, it's not just about the number of repairs that we're seeing, it's also the amount of time that it takes them to do those repairs and the disruption that's causing to our highways network. And I have actually taken up a number of particular individual cases with Anglian Water, particularly a couple of years ago when we had extensive disruption along Littlecoats Road. Whilst they dug up the road, no work was going on, and it got a traffic light control system which was causing traffic chaos. And I do think we need to encourage them to be far more streamlined in the amount of time it takes them to repair leaks once they've identified them. But that's probably a slightly different issue to the one that's being set out in the notice of motion. I noticed there are a number of potential actions for me in here. I would be happy to undertake those. I have to say I was a little concerned about the amount of work that might have been involved for officers as part of resolution number 1 in bringing all that information together, but I'm told that is doable, and if we can pull all that information together, I think it will help us to strengthen our case. So I'm certainly happy to accept this notice of motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Freeston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great motion, local, really like it. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Freeston. Councillor Linley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentiment of the motion. For me, the motion, it's a bit too meaty, a bit too much in it, really, because when we see a motion come forward, they tend to focus on a specific issue or issues rather than this sort of scattergun approach that they've used here. And it doesn't, I think it can be actually, it gives a negative impact rather than doing something positive. And I think some of the issues as well have already been discussed at scrutiny at transport infrastructure and strategic housing. And I think the motion itself, very time intensive, it's asking for a lot, and it's going to take up a lot of officer time, as well as writing letters. And on the issue of writing letters, I'm not really sure whether what value we see from writing these letters. This council in July approved a motion where we would write to the Secretary of State for Housing around housing targets in July, and we actually got a response in November from someone called Schumer in the correspondence unit. So I'm not really certain what value the letters give, because sometimes it makes the response sometimes is a bit of a token gesture. But I agree with the sentiment, and I'm happy to support, but I would like to have seen a bit more of a meaty motion rather than something more generic like this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any more speakers? Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll agree with Councillor Linley that it's quite clunky. There's quite a lot in it, with a lot being asked. I agree with the sentiments. I think it's shocking that Anglian Water have been so bad, especially for an organisation that in the last year made profits of nearly 500 million. They need to do more, but I think there's a clunkiness to the actual motion itself. Some of it's already been done, or certainly letters have gone. I noticed from social media that the local MP has already written to the Secretary of State for Water regarding Anglian Water's burst pipes, both on Freeman Street and Grimsby Cricket Club, which has had numerous problems as well. So that's gone. In regards to discussing it at Tish, Councillor Linley is quite right. We've had to discuss similar things at Tish, and there's some overlap because we have got a streetworks charter that's been pulled together and scrutinised at Tish. So there's some similarity there. So I would agree with the sentiments, and certainly Anglian Water need to do better. But I don't know whether the motion itself actually isn't sort of pointed enough and direct enough. So it's a tricky one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Councillor Morland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to agree with the sentiment of this. I hope the proposer isn't shocked at my support. What I do note, though, is that, like the previous two speakers, there is far too much information. It's not swift enough and direct enough to raise the point that it seeks to make, which is regrettable, to be perfectly honest, because it is laudable and it should be supported. But what my concern is, though, that asking them to come before the panel is the infrastructure, is a bit like, is a bit hard, because if we remember what's happening down in South West Water in Kent, the chairperson has gone to ground with that town not having 5 days of water, etc. I do forget the actual town itself, but the Lib Dems were onto that as well. So I do understand that there's a national connection here. However, having said that, if they've gone to ground, and my concern is though, and I wish that any political party, any government would get to grips with the fact that these people pay themselves bonuses and do not produce anything. When I was at work, you had to work harder and you did time and motion. You did 100 things for one day, whatever it would be. If you produced 50 more, you got the bonus because you worked harder. These people do not earn their money. They are sitting on money that is unearned and they do not deserve any bonuses. In fact, I think it's almost criminal in some cases. I won't say for Anglian Water, I'll be very careful here. So allegedly, some of this can be seen as criminal behaviour. And one is a bit concerned that if the Lib Dems have got a MP raising these issues in the House of Commons and can't get anywhere with the Water Authority, one wonders to what extent we as a local authority would do, despite the fact that the issue raised is a laudable one in and of itself. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morland. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The last three speakers have covered some of the points I wanted to raise. Yeah, I appreciate the sentiment of the motion. As the proposer and seconder will know, I used to work in the East Marsh, and I did see firsthand some of the times when major roads were impacted and impacted businesses and people going about their daily lives, and it's not good. But when I was doing that work, we were involved with an organisation called Create Streets, who were trying to tackle the broader issue. They were trying to look at an issue they called street scarring about our infrastructure. So I'm glad that we've had people from the Tisch scrutiny panel speak today, because there obviously are some sort of policy solutions. So I was a bit perturbed to see, yes, water is the primary one that's impacting at the moment. I'm a little concerned that if you do a motion on water, the other utilities at risk of being left out, and it sort of misses that chance for, dare I say it, joined up local and national government to say, let's tackle all of these issues at once. And having been on Tisch scrutiny myself last year, I was aware of some of the things that Councillor Lindley and Councillor Mill have mentioned. There is a risk of duplication here. Maybe not in the letter writing, but some of the things that are going on, some of the proposals, some of the stuff on the work programme. So I just wonder if a better way forward is to come to a way where there's a better liaison between the proposer, the seconder, and those already on Tisch, not to duplicate the work, and to find some sort of compromise there, some sort of way forward, so that we don't have a missed opportunity. For me, unfortunately, the worst thing that could happen here is if we do vote this through, there's a risk that it undermines the good work of one of our scrutiny panels, and I won't want to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphrey. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of the Tisch scrutiny, totally understand where Councillor Mill coming from and Councillor Humphrey. However, we talked mainly about Cadent, and this is a problem. We maybe missed one of these contractors, and Anglian Water is a big impact on North East Lincolnshire. Detail, half the time I hear notions in here, there's not enough detail. We whinge about detail, we whinge about not enough duration, nobody's give a title. I understand where you're coming from, but at least they've tried and they've brought another one to it. I'm quite happy from the Tisch panel that this would come onto it, and this strategy that we've put in place, hopefully Anglian Water will be the same sort of company. So I would support this notion. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Oh, Councillor Augusta.
Yeah, I am, just to make it really brief, and just want to correct Councillor Croft. I think Anglian Water has signed that charter that we were talking about momentarily, so they are already on board. So I just want everyone aware. So I just think that's quite important. Anglian Water are on board on that point, and have already sort of been talked about it. I know we talk more about Canaan and something else, but.
Thank you, Councillor Augusta. Councillor Wheatley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree with, in principle, to the motion. However, I do think that I agree with a lot of the other members in the chamber at the moment, And I think that some of the points are surplus to requirements. I think that point 5 is specifically surplus to requirements in that it states that the leader of the council will be requested to report back to all elected members. Well, it's a notice of motion. We get that anyway. You know, it comes back to full council as a report. So actually, it's surplus to requirements. By all means, send it to scrutiny. I think scrutiny are already doing that. But I think that the other points 2, 3, 4 and 5 are surplus to requirements and could potentially need deleting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've listened to the debate. I was unsure on this, to be quite honest. I thought it could have been done a different way than a motion to the council. I think some questions could have been asked to the portfolio holder, asking him to take action, or the leader or whatever. I think the scrutiny, if there was a request by email, we've just gone through the work programme, 6-monthly review, it could have been pushed for that. I think there's all sorts of ways that this could have been done rather than a motion. However, I do agree, and we've been pushing for a long time about street works, that some of the utilities leave the street works less than desirable after they're finished. And so it does fit in with that. It'd be interesting in the letter, if the letter is written, to find out what the fundamental issue is in different areas of the town. Is it that the pipework's old and corroded? I mean, if it's corroded, we're drinking that water, aren't we? You know, so is it that? Is it movement within the road surface, in the road structure, that's causing pipes to fracture? You know, it'd be interesting to find some analysis from Anglia Water of what the fundamental issues are. It would also be interesting to find out, regarding other towns of similar size, what issues they're getting, to see if we're good or bad. You know, you know, we think it's bad, but is it actually an old network? And other town, you know, Anglia Water's snowed under with repairs all over the region, and somewhat you can see why there might be delays, and a sensible approach to that situation needs to be thought about. The ongoing, I mean, flooding, if it does flood properties or stops businesses working, I mean, that's a serious issue, isn't it? It's a serious issue that Anglia Water shouldn't be able to dodge if it's not a one-off. If it's a one-off, you know, anybody can have a burst pipe in the property or under the property or near the property. But if it's a regular occurrence, as been stated, then there needs to be some reassurance for the residents of this borough that some plans are afoot to rectify that. You know, because, you know, how long do we wait? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? You know, if there is underlying problems, and that actually going to get worse. So I do sympathise with the motion. I think half of this could have been dealt with a different way. Perhaps all of it could have been, but you know, that's in the prerogative of the mover. You know, and we wouldn't want to stop people putting motions forward. That's not my intention. So with that in mind, I think taking on board what other people have said as well about some of the points, you know, perhaps we need to think about tidying up a bit. But you know, I can't do that on the youth now for me. So yeah, I'm happy to support it at the moment. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Bassant. Oh, Councillor Bassant. Are you oh, sorry, Councillor Bassant. Another hand's just come up. Councillor Shutt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, Councillor Freest, I'm going to be a bit longer than you on this one. Members, I do sympathise with many of the comments and sentiments about this motion. I could spend hours with you talking about the issues that we as ward councillors had to face in these situations. And you do get a sense of the frustration from councillors Aysthorpe and Besant. It runs through this notice of motion. But I have to ask for all the effort required from officers, portfolio holders and the leader. What will it actually achieve? Section 1 reels off a raft of retrospective asks. I think we've already had expressed concerns about how much work that is for officers. The leader might just say, and officers have said, oh, they'll be able to do it. They probably would do whatever you ask, leader, and that's what our officers are like. But these responses, costs, impacts on areas such as Freeman Street and giving the portfolio 6 months to submit a report. Madam Mayor, it's just another report that says a lot, but means nothing. We should be looking forward, not backwards, which alludes to the point that Councillor Freester made earlier on, but I'm picking this one. Perhaps you didn't pick the right one. Section 2 invites Anglian Water to attend a scrutiny panel to provide an update on their assessments, decision making, implications and investment plans. Don't forget this is a private equity company, doesn't list shares, it's a private equity company. It says if they're unable to attend, to provide a written briefing. Yep, I'm sure they will. Would you attend a scrutiny meeting to be beaten over the head with a report from section 1 which might be accurate or might not? Madam Mayor, honestly, is this the best way to engage with one of our largest utility companies? Surely we can do better, and I've felt that in the members tonight. They like the sentiment, they don't like the too much meat on the bone. Red, my dog would like that, but there you go. Section 3 requests the leader writes formally. God, they really have put a lot of effort into this, you can tell. To Anglian Water, request a borough-wide action plan with priorities, timescales and locations, areas including Freeman Street. They're just getting a bit surreal, Madam Mayor. This notice of motion is slipping to the realms of fantasy. I think personally it's going to be a waste of time. Do the leader and his group feel they can support this motion in this current form? It looks like they are. Is the arrangement with the Lib Dems so important they must vote for such a passionate but poorly constructed notice of motion? I'm sorry, I have to say that. It's already been said. It's poorly constructed. There's no criticism. It's just like, well, we like the sentiment. I'm going to be straight and hard with you. This is going to end up being a waste of time. A waste of time, officers' time, the leaders' time, portfolios holders' time. But listening to the room, I do believe I may have a solution. Please hear me out. Which will buy some time for everyone to reflect on the best way forward. Yesterday, we received a communique from the office of our Greater Grimsby and Cleethorpes MP, Melanie Young. I have copies for the leaders if they need it. I'm sure you've probably read it. The communique is a letter sent to Emma Hardy MP at the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. The letter raises ongoing concerns about Anglian Water's network in Grimsby, particularly the repeated burst mains in East Marsh on Freeman Street, that Grimsby Cricket Club, which was alluded to earlier. The letter goes on to say that her office has been in direct contact with Anglian Water since August. This notice of motion has just come to us today. A lot of information that they have. Madam Mayor, the letter requests the department to contact Anglian Water to discuss the reliability of its infrastructure and ensure timely investment in renewal. She is awaiting the department's response so she can update affected residents, businesses and the cricket club. I understand councillors Aysthorpe and Besant were not aware of this letter when writing this notice of motion. But whether
councillors.
Whether that would have changed their mind, I don't know. Perhaps not. But it's out of in the public domain. I feel strongly that our MP's letter will save time and effort and carry more gravitas than this notice of motion we are currently debating. I offer the opportunity for Councillor Aysthorpe and Besant to withdraw this notice of motion. But if they feel unlikely to oblige to that, I have an amendment from the floor to this notice of motion. Okay, my proposal is The amendment reads. You ready?
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Is it an amendment from the floor if he's reading it?
I believe it is.
Madam Mayor, if I may. Councillor Short, if you're going to propose, or I think you're going to propose, that should have been made on notice.
Well, I only got this communique yesterday.
I can't help that.
But I didn't have time to get my motion in, my amendment.
I know, but you're restricted to motions that arise during the course of the debate.
But don't you think that the cause of the debate, I can pick 4 people here that said that they don't like the size of it. There's too much work. I'm sorry, officer. I do believe that.
On a point of personal explanation, Madam Mayor, I didn't say there was too much work. I said I'd made some inquiries and I'd been assured that the amount of work was manageable.
If you're proposing, Councillor Short, what I think you're going to propose, that should have been made on notice, and there are timelines for that. And I'm sorry you didn't get the communication until yesterday, but this meeting has been scheduled for some time.
You've not even listened to my amendment. If you'd understood my amendment, you'd understand why I spoke. Can I ask if you listen to my amendment, and if you feel it's out of order, I'll accept that. Is that fair?
Let him propose something and we'll see. I don't know what he's going to propose. I can only guess and speculate, Councillor Aythorpe.
Are you okay with that? Thank you. Amendment, members. Council therefore resolves that the Leader of the Council be requested to write to the office of the Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes MP, Melanie On.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Don't we meant to have the amendment given to us in paper so we can read through it?
This has come from the floor, Councillor Emerson.
Can I just hear out Councillor Shutt, please, as to what he's about to propose?
Shall I carry on, Madam Mayor? Thank you. To write to the office of the Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes MP, Melanie On, requesting the Leader is updated with the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs response to her letter over ongoing concerns regarding the condition of Anglian Water's network in Grimsby. The Leader then is requested to inform all members of the contents of said response. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Shaw. I think that kind of amendment should have been made on notice. I know, I'm sorry.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I would ask the monitoring officers to actually refer specifically to the part of the Constitution which forbids this particular amendment.
Bear with me, Councillor Patrick. I think it's Standing Order 13 something. Bear with. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Madam Mayor, if I may. 13.6B. For an amendment to a motion on notice as proposed, it should be submitted in writing to the monitoring officer on the day before the day of the council meeting to which it relates. Once agreed as valid by the monitoring officer, any such amendment may be tabled at any point during the debate as agreed with the proposer and seconder of the amendment. This does not preclude the moving of an amendment during any debate which arises from the debate itself. Councillor Schutt has produced a festive rabbit out of the hat with a letter from Ms On MP, which was only known, I think, to Councillor Schutt or to some certain members. It's not an amendment that arises out of the debate. It should have been made on notice.
Madam Mayor, can I call for a closure motion at this point, if we've got a seconder?
So,
I've got point of order.
members, I know it's getting late. It's nearly Christmas. Let's just let one person at a time speak. Let's deal with what that request was. Let's then go on to the next speaker, just so Madam Mayor can keep track of it all and the monitoring officer can advise. Thank you.
Councillor Feaston, I'm afraid you can't propose that kind of motion because you've already spoken on the matter.
A point of order. I absolutely hear what the monitoring officer said and would agree with his interpretation. However, there's a different interpretation, and my point of order is that on this occasion, the different interpretation would succeed. I've got no doubts that Councillor Schutt prepared for this, and it should have been on notice as the monitoring officer said. However, although he prepared, and it looks like that on the surface, he didn't put his hand up to near the end of the debate because he listened to the debate before he thought about putting it in. He had it ready to put in, but he listened to the debate. He didn't come in early. He came in very late, and therefore this amendment arises out of the debate on this occasion. But I fully understand that it could be interpreted the other way because of preparation.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Madam Mayor, through you. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, your usual Herculean effort. But I think because it was produced out of the hat, it didn't arise from the debate. There was no other mention of Miss On's letter. The reliance on that.
Sorry,
members,
did
please
raise it.
I did raise Melion's letter on social media. I mentioned it. Thank you.
Still the opinion, members, that it should have been made on notice. Can't escape that fact.
Madam Mayor, again, I'd like to put in a formal protest against that. I've just explained that while preparation was there and it was pulled out of a hat, and I agree with that, the decision to pull it out of the hat was made from the debate. And how can the officer actually say that that's not the case? I'm absolutely flabbergasted.
Madam Mayor, can I rise to move to the vote, please?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Just one moment.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patrick, and to you.
Madam Mayor.
It's just completely frustrating that as soon as I make a decision or a judgment, it's challenged and challenged and challenged. I'm not a politician, Councillor Easthorpe. My job is to apply the Constitution. My role is to ensure that members adhere to the rules of debate and the rules of engagement. My view, knowing the Constitution, is that that kind of amendment runs coaching horses through this and should have been made on notice. Now can we please move on?
Madam Mayor, sorry for standing up. I'd just like to apologise.
Respect democracy.
I'd like to
please.
Apologise to the monitoring officer, because it's not
Councillor
my intention
Aisthorpe.
to frustrate anybody, particularly council officers. I'll give you my sincere apologies for that.
Not necessary. I appreciate it though. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can we move to the vote, please?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're still debating and we have got people still waiting to talk. There's names down on this list waiting to talk. Thank you, Councillor Freeston. I'm sorry, but the amendment doesn't stand. So now I'm going to my list where there's people waiting to talk. I've got Councillor Henderson.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. If there's been a valid closure motion, shouldn't that be taken to the vote?
We're going to what's on the list. I have got Councillor Henderson waiting to talk, and then I've got Councillor Basant next. And then we'll go to the vote if there's nobody else wants to speak.
Madam Mayor is perfectly entitled to take that decision.
Councillor Henderson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for a voice of calm and reason. What must the public be thinking while they're watching this absolute shower? I'm embarrassed. I really am embarrassed. So we've got a motion on notice here. It might have some issues with it, but it's 3 people standing up for the people on their ward. They've laid out what they want to happen. They've got a good idea. All right, some of it may already have happened. I'm sure when we come to enact the motion, then some of those things might get struck out. They might get amended. We've got a cabinet here who says, yeah, okay, great idea. I'm prepared to get involved. We've had people commenting from the sides about, I could have written it better. Well, but you didn't. So 3 people brought this motion on notice. People seem generally happy and supportive of it. What I would actually agree with Councillor Freeston. We should move to the vote and get it voted through, because nobody's actually said anything that's against it. And as for the point scoring, a rabbit, have we ever really had a conversation about a rabbit in a hat for 5 minutes? So that typing that you did, Councillor Shutt, that you bought, just because you waited till everybody had spoken before you pulled it out, doesn't mean that it's raised from the floor. It's just a bit of an embarrassment. So can we get back to the issue in hand, which is the people over the marsh are struggling because the roads keep getting flooded. And anybody who's got an idea about how to try and fix that, then I say crack on.
Councillor Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It won't surprise you to know that I fundamentally disagree with what the monitoring officer decided on this, and I think if there was a perfect example of what constitutes an amendment from the floor, this was frankly it, because I don't know otherwise what would reach the criteria. Going with the motion, yes, the sentiment, and it's been said, is exactly correct. This is actually a massive problem within the borough. I don't think anybody actually debates this, but the motion is in of itself fundamentally flawed on a number of levels. And I think that an amendment from the floor, a consensus, might have actually dealt with a number of these issues. But unfortunately, far too many members have scoffed at this tonight. And, you know, we clearly the rules and sentiments of the debate are just not being adhered to as they should be. I think the motion fundamentally is...
Councillor Patrick, can we talk about the motion, please, and not what's just happened? Thank you.
Right. Well, I'm talking about the motion, and it's fundamentally clunky. An amendment might have actually dealt with this, but now obviously it backs me fundamentally into a corner, and of course that's what amendments are for. Notably, I think that the items on the beginning is some pretty heavy lifting and hard work. And although I agree with the sentiment, I'm not entirely sure what we would do with that information if we had as a council. I think the best way to describe it with item number 1 is a bit of an O'Dearism. We would have that information, but in terms of what we would do with that as a local authority, I'm not entirely sure. In terms of Tish, if by miracle Anglian Water actually arrived and wanted to discuss this with us, or if they actually wrote to us with this information, again, I'm not entirely sure what they would do with that, But one thing that would concern me greatly is that if we're actually going to be publicly identifying high-risk locations, pipes at risk of burning, that'd be interesting, bursting, and other areas that are actually prone to flooding because of poor infrastructure, I can only imagine what that could do to people's insurance premiums and what it would actually do to property prices in those areas without actually making any difference in their lives and making them actually safer or protecting streets. And I think that perhaps hasn't been considered particularly well. And as we've already heard, the notion about writing to the relevant minister, that's wonderful, but we've heard fundamentally it's already actually been done. So what we would actually get out of that, I fundamentally don't know as a motion. So like I say, there was options how this motion could have been, well, pardon the pun, patched up and made fit for purpose. But I think that opportunity has been lost tonight, and really the debate has been somewhat lacking to achieve the best outcomes for the residents of this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Bassam.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. An interesting debate tonight it is, but I'll try and keep to the salient points, I will do. We've got water everywhere at the moment. It's raining like mad. Think back a few months ago. Few months, it was dry every day, week in, week out, except for about the 15 water leaks we had at one particular time on the East Marsh. There was water everywhere then, there was, and particularly the one down Freeman Street. Talk about one. But I can recollect about 5 in the last year. That pipe work, believe it or not, has possibly been in there since it was called Straight Street, Freeman Street. So that's going back to the Victorian times. I saw them dig up a section of pipe which had burst. Cast iron, this diameter. The hole in it was rusty, it was. So that pipe had been leaking for a while and then suddenly burst the road. That's the situation we're in down Freeman Street. Another leak we had just recently, a fairly big leak, 100 yards away, and Anglian Water knew about this. There was another leak, there was. So there was 2 leaks. They only fixed the one leak. I've had residents passing the one which are referred to as the second leak, who was getting soaked every single day. It was that bad. The situation is crazy. Councillor Jackson talked about how long it takes to repair a leak. How long? I reported one personally on Hilda Street. I got notification fairly quickly that Anglian Water would be coming out. They come out, no leak. You could see the road literally cracking, you could do, and lifting. So it's doing damage to the road. It was only leaking very slightly, admittedly, but something was happening there. The school stopped me one day. What are we doing about this leak at Wearsby Street School? I says, I've already reported it, but I'll report it again. So I reported it again. Got a message back. It's something to do with the sewage system. Thought, there's water coming out here. I had to report it a 3rd time. That went on about 4 weeks until they come out one night. And I stopped to talk to the workers, and they said, oh, we've got to get this fixed now because the mayor has got in touch with us about it. They still thought I was the mayor, the council officers did, but I wasn't at the time. So they would listen to the mayor. So Councillor Goodwin, can you please deal with all our water leaks? Because they did on this occasion, they did. And we've had situations right in front of somebody's house, in front of their entrance into the front garden. And there's been mud and everything on that road, and they've been dragging it into their house. Now, this is the best one, corner of Heneage Road and Pastor Street. How long it takes to get a leak done? It's been marked
1
out.
minute, councillor Basan.
Thank you very much. It's been marked out since about May time. It's still leaking. It's still leaking. So I will be getting in touch with Highways tomorrow, asking for section 81 saved on Anglian Water. They might do something then. They haven't done nothing since May, but they might do something. And to be honest, this situation is crazy. And when Councillor Aysthorpe asked me to second it, I gladly said I would do. Because to be honest, and one point about Councillor Morland, he says there might not come Anglian Water. In actual fact, if you think back, Councillor Morland, there came, it's Councillor Shutter who said it, wasn't it? Sorry. But Councillor Morland will remember this. They did come to a select committee we had, Anglian Water, so they will attend. So I think it'd be good for them to attend scrutiny. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Basan. Councillor Aysthorpe, you're right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know we all want to get home, so I'll be really quick. Nothing in this motion, Madam Mayor, is unreasonable or controversial. We are asking for information, scrutiny and communication with residents. If even these basic steps are considered too much by anyone in this chamber, Madam Mayor, then residents will judge that for themselves. Residents have lived with this disruption for far too long. And while an individual letter from the MP may play a small part, they need to know that we, us councillors in this chamber, are standing up for them. This is a motion, Madam Mayor, that gives the council a clear and practical framework for doing exactly that. Thank you.
In accordance with the Constitution, I will now take a recorded vote on this motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors voting for the motion say for, councillors voting against say against, and any abstain say abstain.
Madam Mayor, may I suggest we vote on block if everybody's going to vote the same way anyway, just as a proposal?
Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. On block then? All those in favour? Carried. Carried. Item 15, urgent business. There is no urgent business for consideration at this meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and I now declare this meeting closed. And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all.